Okay. Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, it is the regular meeting on July 13th of the East Bay Township Board. We'll call the meeting to order, and if you join me, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, hi Ann, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
We'll start with a roll call.
Walters. Present. Lyle.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Bartlett.
Yes.
S. Cortade. Here. M. Cortade.
Here.
Friend.
Here. Thank you. All right, the agenda. We'll review the agenda for conflict of interest. We have on our agenda our regular consent agenda with no particular additional items noted. We have some reports. Financial review, we do have our fiscal year 2025 audit report completed. We have engineering update with Wade Trim, East Bay ambulance update, facilities and recreation, planning and zoning report. And then as far as other items, we do have Granger Group development here and wages for mid-year adjustments, and then the TCAPS agreement with a possible closed session. Does anybody have a conflict of interest to declare? Okay, seeing none, is there anything anybody would like to add to the agenda? And actually, I would like to add something to the agenda. You do have, this came to us sometime mid-morning, right, Nathan? This is you have it on your desk. It's the library HVAC and electrical upgrades. I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past. This is where we're looking at replacing the second HVAC system that's in the library. So with that, I would just ask that we add that. I mean, it's kind of on here anyway, but we'll just note, we'll add it under number 4 for facilities and recreation report. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the library bid.
Okay, there's a motion by Bartlett, support by S. Cortade. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We have an agenda, and we will move on to public comment. Now is the time for the public to address the board on anything that they would like. Our public comment policy is in the packet. I won't make Ann repeat it because we have limited public here, I see, but anyone who would like to come up and talk to the board is welcome to. All right, seeing none, we will move forward with correspondence and reports. I do want to interrupt just really quickly and ask Lindsay. Lindsay, are you able to connect your computer up for your PowerPoint?
Oh,
Here?
I don't know.
Or do you have it on your laptop right now? And if you don't, we can get paper copies.
Yes, it's an app.
Okay, do you have paper copies?
No.
Okay, I will take a quick break before yours and we'll grab some paper copies because I forgot, I was thinking we were going to hook you up and I didn't see you until right before the meeting, so, nope, sorry about that. All right, so everybody, we'll come back. We're at correspondence and reports. You do have some in your packet, mostly primarily some road commission reports. Thank you for those. Dan, we have the MTA annual renewal letter. You have treasurer's reports with the reconciliation reports, and the clerk's office report, which has some election information in it, and then the supervisor's meeting log. Is there any questions about any of those with anyone from the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Ann, would you be willing to review that consent agenda for us?
The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent agenda, the action uttered in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. This evening, you have board minutes from June 8th, 2026, regular meeting, recommend approval. The general fund, check numbers 20455 through 20551 in the amount of $100,603.44, and check numbers 20500 through 20510 voided. Emergency fund, check numbers 6271 through 6299 in the amount of $117,648.31, and check number 6283 was voided. The receiving fund, check number 3026 through 3027, were paid in the amount of $1,588,972.39. The escrow fund, check numbers 2153 through 2158, in the amount of $12,498.42. There were no checks issued from the Roads SAD Fund, and there were 2 payrolls. The first one, May 31st, 2026 through June 13th, 2026, check numbers 8031 through 8032, and that totaled $81,519.32. And the payroll dated June 14th through June 27th, check numbers 8033 through 8036, totaled $94,060.59. Total payroll, $175,579.91, and total amount paid, $1,995,002.37. You have a couple of proposed budget adjustments to be dealt with underneath the financial update on item B, and I think that's it.
That is it. Thank you very much. Is there anything a board member would like removed from the consent agenda?
I'd just like to make sure to have Ann read receiving fund check numbers and the amount again.
3026 through 3037,
Thank you.
$1,588,672.29.
Thank you.
Okay, anything removed? All right, would anyone from the public like anything removed from the consent agenda? Okay, we'll bring that back to the board for a motion. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
There's a motion made by Bartlett and supported by Cook. Is there further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Lyle, Walters,
Yes.
Escortate,
Yes.
M. Cortate,
Yes.
Friend.
Yes. Thank you very much. We will move to some reports. We do have Grand Traverse County in front of us. I don't believe we have anyone here from Grand Traverse County tonight. So I think that they probably are all busy elsewhere with other meetings. And of course, it's the height of the holiday season, and vacation season. We will move on then to Grand Traverse County Road Commission. We do have Dan Watkins here. How are you tonight, Dan? Thanks for being here.
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
You've been pretty busy.
Yeah, it really hasn't even stopped since we had that last big snow event. We were into the heavy flooding. It just keeps going. So it's been pretty wild. That's what I was going to start off talking about tonight. We identified over 155 locations from that original flood damage. Most of those we have taken care of, but every time we get these heavy rains, we're finding these soft areas that we just put back together aren't holding up very well. So we find ourselves going back and repeating where we were currently at. One bit of good news, I know we had the issue over there on 5 Mile where it washed out several times. We had some heavy rain last night. It looks really good today. So I think we finally got that in a good shape. So that was some great news. A couple of big wins for us. I know getting Brown Bridge back open was big, and that came in like $40,000 under estimate for what they actually bid for it. So that was great news.
How much
See
is that, Dan, roughly?
I'm trying to think they came in like $70,000 or something like that.
Okay.
Fix that bridge. So that was awesome. That was going to be a really big expense. So it was great to see that. Getting everything removed out of Beitner, that came in at $100,000. When we were doing the original engineer estimates, that was like budgeted for like $500,000. When we saw our bids come back in, we had budgeted like $5 million for that project, and it came in at, I think, 3.7. So we saw the savings by having Molon do that at that time. So that was great to see that. Things are going really good with the Beitner project. that we did have the bid opening on that. We're just waiting now to hear some more timelines and schedules. We're really hopeful that we can still get that done and get that opened up here before the end of the year. So, speaking about projects, Hammond Road, we had that out to bid, that came back in. They are ready to go on that project. I know we're partnering at the same time that you guys are doing that with the safe schools and putting the sidewalks in. So it sounds like that's something we need to work out, figure out if you guys are ready to go, if we're ready to go, and they can do that project at the same time. I know the goal is to get most of that done before school opens up, so definitely.
And talked with Connie today. For whatever reason, as I was telling you before the meeting, I thought you guys were still going to bid. And Elmer's came back on ours, and we'll be getting more information about that. So we'll do this week conference call. Claire's out of the office this week on vacation, but we'll get Connie and Gerald and myself and you be kind of figuring out the pacing of that and with Elmer's.
Perfect. I think it worked out great that Elmer's won both bids. They can do the whole project together and hopefully save everybody a little bit of money. So,
Yeah, we were definitely both hoping, as this board knows, to get the same contractor on both.
yes.
That'll be really helpful.
I think that'll work out really good for everyone.
Yeah.
Probably the best case scenario there. A couple other projects, obviously Frankie Road on the other side, that one's going now. Roosh Road, that's kind of close by here. Roosh Road on the Garfield Township side, they want to do a 50/50 match. That project will be coming yet this fall as well. All of our long line painting, guardrail repair, chip seal, our wedging, most of that's already been completed for the year. So that's good. Got it done early in the year and got it done before the holiday and Cherry Festival. So it was nice to have, don't have paint trucks and all these extra contractors running around. So it was nice to see that happen that early in the season. I talked quite a bit about long-term planning, probably over the last 2 years when I've came in, how doing the car counts and doing the road ratings and putting these all together. And then based off all that data, we worked with Wade Trim, and they created an in-house database where we have all of our roads in there now. All the ratings, all the miles on there, and what you can actually do is put in funding sources now. You can say, I'm working with Mayfield Township right now, and just for like a rough estimate, say they want to put $300,000 a year into their roads. Within a minute, it can generate what is the best path and formula to keep your road system moving forward. So what we're trying to do is apply that to the entire county now. So it might not grab the projects you think or would jump at immediately, but it's saying if you do these things first, you can better your road system overall. And it breaks up funding sources for each year and, types of just repair all the way to complete replacement. It's really amazing to work with. So at any point in time, if the township would like us to come in and look at some different funding sources for projects or anything like that, we can do that now. We have every single asphalt road, we have the car counts, we have the ratings of the roads, and you can put a funding source to it. And within a minute's time, it can say, this is what you should do. I can identify which roads should be chip sealed, which roads are savable, which roads are in poor shape. So it's a really cool function. Been working for a couple of years very hard to get to this point, so really excited about that project. So that was kind of my highlights for tonight. If anybody has
Yeah.
any questions.
That's good to hear, and I think, well, first thing we'd want to do is take a look at the funding that the road commission puts aside for the different townships and see where that's best utilized. I would imagine that software would help with that as well.
Yeah, whatever dollar amount you want to put in there, you can say I have $100,000 a year to spend, or you can say I have $5 million a year to spend, and it'll give you the best path forward, and you can spread it out of, I want to do this over 5 years or 3 years.
Yep.
And it really gives you a nice direction, so.
Okay, and the other thing Dan and I were talking about just today, and also talked with Connie, because Dan had mentioned there are 2 overhead lights at the intersection, not the traffic lights, but just illumination lights on older poles, and so as they're going through, those will be taken down. I talked with Connie, and she said on the south side of Safe Routes to School, which comes, part of that intersection is Safe Routes, the the multimodal portion, that is already going to have some lighting that is consistent with what's down at the roundabout, so we'll have 2 on the south side. So from the township's perspective, our contract and work that we're doing is sufficiently lighted and planned for in the project. So basically, what Connie was saying is, and I would concur with this, is any lighting that's needed would be really what's needed for safety from a traffic perspective. And so I would ask the road commission if there is any that's needed there. But remember, we also have 2 gas stations that are really well illuminated on that north side. Even during their off hours, it's pretty well illuminated. So I think that that'll probably make an impact on that. So I think that's where we're at with that part at this time. And then just following up and trying to coordinate as we've been doing with the Safe Routes and the Hammond Road project. So, didn't you got a new engineer, correct?
We did, yes. His name's Neil Galehouse. Has a lot of experience. He's working out really well.
Good, good. And he was from downstate?
He's from the Lansing area.
Good.
Oh, yep.
Nice, nice. Any questions for Dan?
I'd just like to make
Yeah.
a comment. You guys, I know, have had a rough time on 5 Mile Road, but it seems to have worked now. It seems you guys got it. You did a nice job on it.
Appreciate that.
All right, well, thanks so much for taking time to be here tonight.
All right, definitely. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Okay, with that, we will move on to the financial review, and I think we'd have 2 people here. We have William Love, who is with Raymond, who conducts our audit, and we also have Steve Kranovic here, who works for Manica Saracen, who is a resource for us from an accounting standpoint. And so we'll kick it off with Will. How are you doing today?
I'm good, you? Everything
Good.
okay?
You just got back from a vacation, did you not?
I did.
Good for you.
This is the first Monday back after 2 weeks of vacation.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, with a little bit of extra Monday fog to help out the day.
And all of the board members do have their paper copies of the audit, as well as it's in the board packet for the public.
Good evening. As Beth said, I'm Will Love. Was the manager on this engagement, which means that I oversaw field work, make sure that we got things done on time and got things finished up and wrapped up and keep moving along as best we can. You've got a couple of packets in front of you. One of them has a nice colorful cover on it. That's the financial statements. That's where we're going to start. The other one is the form of a letter that is written to the board, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. I expect this presentation to be fairly mundane, and I know when you hear mundane, that's oh, where's my no-dos? But in the case of an audit presentation, mundane is good. When you have a lot of drama and issues when you're going through the audit, that means that something went wrong. This is about as clean an audit as you can get. So we'll point out a couple of things along the way, but very minor issues. So we're going to start about 5 pages into the financial statements. It's labeled at the bottom, page 1. After the table of contents, and that is the independent auditor's report. It's important to remember that all of the information contained in this packet, the financial statements and the disclosures, are the responsibility of management. All this information comes from the books and records that are kept by management. As auditors, our job is to audit that information and provide you, in this case, with 2 separate reports. One we're going to look at now, and one is all the way at the end. So kind of sandwiched on each side of the financial information are the 2 reports that we as auditors are responsible for. This first one is our independent auditor's report on the financial statements as they're presented here. It tells first paragraph talks about what we presented, or what we audited. And the second paragraph, which is really the important one, the one that you're looking for, is the opinion paragraph. And we have about a couple, 3 sentences here, some fairly long-winded. But what really this says is, in our opinion, the financial statements as presented here are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. That's called a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion, the best opinion we could give to a set of financial statements. Now, I will tell you that after this paragraph, it goes on for a couple of pages. There's a lot of explanations about relative responsibilities, assumptions made, things like that. I would encourage you to read it. I'm not planning on going over all of it, because again, it's very boilerplate. The important thing is clean opinion on the audit, and we can move on from there. A couple things I'm going to take a look at real quick here, and the reason is because, again, these are things I would encourage you to read, but not necessarily to. And we got here on page, and I'm looking at the bottom of the page. Why am my computer is not cooperating?
And these would be the page numbers.
I think my
of the-
computer's having a Monday as well.
Yeah, no problem. These would be when.
Page 7.
Yeah. When Will refers to the page number, he's talking about the actual audit copy itself, not the packet page, just for anyone listening.
Yeah, the packet page should be the same. At the bottom, this should be page
No,
7.
yeah.
Yeah, this one, these are the final copies, so they don't have, when you look at the drafts, you get the page up on the
No, I'm
corner and the
talking
page
about
at the bottom.
when we incorporate it in our packet, we have a footer, and it might have a different number.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. So that's the audit. The audit page is 7, and the title at the top should say Management Discussion and Analysis. This is a document that's prepared by management in order to give everybody, the readers of financial statement, kind of an executive summary of what happened in the financial statement. You're going to see information from last year, information from this year, and kind of a general overview of what happened to get you from point A to point B. Some highlights in here, some information on the budget. Again, I'd encourage you to read it. I'm not planning on going through it totally because we're going to talk about the actual financial statements in a minute. But I would encourage you, it's a good place to start before you dive into the actual financial statements. Okay, so the actual financial statements begin. There we go. On page 22. And this is called this, nope, I'm wrong here. Hold on, I'm on the wrong page. Okay, I'm just going to do it this way. And I'm going to do it the easy way here. And so I'll tell you that we're going to start actually on page 19. Okay, you'll notice there are 2 sets of financial statements here. There are a couple of statements that are called the government-wide statements. And then you move into something called the fund-based financial statements. The government-wide statements are intended to be a really high-fly overview of the township as a whole, broken into pieces by activities. That'd be governmental activities being one, business-type activities. The business-type activities we're talking about the water and sewer funds, and all the other funds are governmental funds, all go into this category called governmental activities. Now, the difference between this presentation of a balance sheet and the presentation of a balance sheet we're going to look at in a second has nothing to do with there being 2 sets of books or anything like that. This simply contains things that aren't included in, I still got us on the wrong page. My gosh, we're having a tough time here, folks. I'm sorry. I think we want to go back and look at the statement of net position, which is on page 17. I set up all these nice little hyperlinks for myself so I could jump right to the page. And of course, now they're not working.
It's human.
But that's okay. There are other ways. There are many more than one way to skin a cat. Oops. Don't let my cat hear me say that. So on this balance sheet is a little different from the one we're going to look at in a minute for the general fund, and mostly because you're going to see things as you go down the assets list, investment in joint venture, capital assets, things like that aren't part of the fund presentation because they don't relate to the budget and they don't relate to the way that governments operate on a month-to-month, week-to-week basis. And the same thing as you go down the page to the liabilities, you're going to see bonds, notes, and other long-term liabilities due within 1 year, due in more than 1 year. You're going to see taxes levied for a subsequent period under deferred inflows. Those kind of things don't show up. Yeah, well, actually, the deferred inflows do, but the liabilities do not. Anytime you get taxes levied for a subsequent period, that means that what that basically is talking about is the December 1st levy. It's levied, so it's receivable, but it's not it's intended to be revenue for the following year. And so it ends up being, the revenue itself ends up being deferred to offset the receivable. So this presentation includes all the long-term liabilities and long-term assets that you don't necessarily consider every time you talk about and you compare it to the budget. So the reason the GASB wants this presented, as stated by GASB 34, is they really wanted you to be able to look at 2 similar sized entities and have some basis to compare them. So that's really what these government-wides are supposed to be able to do. Somebody should be able to pull up a similar sized township, look at the government-wide statements and make some kind of comparison. Again, we don't usually do that as part of our job, but that's the stated reason for this. So that's why we have two sets of financial statements. So now let's move forward and let's talk about the statements that look like what you guys do on a monthly basis. And that we still don't remember. Well, poop. Okay, so let's go forward to page 20. And that is the governmental funds balance sheet. Remember, like I said, you've got governmental activities and you've got business type activities. These are your governmental activities in the fund basis. You've got three major funds, and then all the other smaller funds that don't quite make the calculation for major funds are all lumped together in this one column called non-major funds. Now, that information is not lost. It's not just gone. If you go to the back after the notes, you'll find some combining statements that show all those individual funds and how they combine and how they roll up into this. We'll talk mostly about the general fund here anyway. Ended up with total assets about $6.4 million, liabilities about $92,700. Some deferred inflows, there's your taxes levied for subsequent period, and some unavailable revenue. In a governmental fund, certain revenues are not considered available. Anything that you don't receive if you don't receive it within 60 days of year end, that would be a deferred inflow and would be unavailable revenue. Also, you've got leases up here. You have leases receivable that would be considered to be long-term, and therefore they would be deferred. That ends up with fund balance, total fund balance about $5.6 million, unassigned fund balance, which is your completely unrestricted amount of about $3.8 million. Now, usually here we like to talk about how the percentage of fund balance to this year's expenses, but it's a pretty cursory look at this will tell you that you have quite a bit more in unassigned fund balance than you had in expenses for this year. So your fund balance is in a pretty good position. Okay, the next page after the, well, not the next page, but 2 pages on. Okay, I'm not even going to look at those anymore. I'm just going to move through it my own way. Is the income statement related to the governmental funds. You'll see we had about $2.9 million in revenue in the general fund and about $2.3 million in expenses. So obviously, revenues were over expenditures by $742,000. Add in some transfers in the prior year, you'll see how you ended up with that fund balance of $5.6 million. One thing I would point out here is, and you'll notice that the Municipal Streets Capital Projects Fund did collect enough in special assessments this year to cover both the principal and interest on the bond payments and to bring that fund out of deficit. It ended up in deficit last year. Not unusual for a capital projects fund, as you usually collect a lot of that money up front when you, especially with bond proceeds, and then you spend it down until you finally spend all the bond proceeds. Plus, you've also been spending stuff that you're going to get reimbursed for by special assessments as well.
And that's the one that we had to file the deficit reduction on last year. But for people listening, that is not anything related to how the project was done. It's more related to the mechanics of it. And
It's a timing thing. Yeah,
that's
completely.
absolutely, every other township that did the same thing had to do the very same thing.
Like a lot of times you'll see, if you get bond proceeds up front, so that, and then the fund balance will just sort of shrink as the project goes through. In this case, you had to factor in special assessments that are helping to fund. And a lot of the principle to that comes later because of it's interest loaded at the beginning. Okay. That's really all.
So we don't have to file that this year.
What's that?
We don't have to file that this year.
No,
By-
not at all.
By virtue of 1700 or 1721,
You know,
right?
like I said, not unusual for a capital projects fund. You're not necessarily concerned necessarily with the fund balance of a projects fund. You only want to know how much do we still have to spend on a project. And also to pay, to work on paying down the debt. That's at this point, the special assessments will cover the debt payments. Okay, and if we look on 2 pages on from there, we've got the budget to actual statement. Later on, we're going to talk a little bit about a new GASB that's coming through next year. And I'll get to that, but keep in mind right now where the budget statements are now and where they're going to be next year, because that's going to change coming up. And we'll get to that when we look at the SAS letter. You'll see that the governmental, that the general fund had 251,000 more in actual than you budgeted for. And all the way down on the next page, you'll see expenses came out the same way. You had 298,000 less than what you budgeted for in expenditures. So all that ends up with a revenue over expenditures budget variance of almost 550,000. That's why you budgeted originally to add 217,000 to fund balance, and you ended up with about 767,000 added.
And if somebody goes back and reads the MD&A, then they'll see the reasons for that.
Yes, exactly. MD&A will show the reasoning behind what happened to the budget, underances as well as any overages. I think there was one small overage up in, let me see there, I can see it right there. Up in general government, the treasurer's department was over by $385.
Yeah.
So,
Mine was over once by like $17, yeah, I remember.
oh, yeah. Mhm. So good job on that one. $385 is a pretty good guess, I would say. Okay, and if we move on to the next page, we also got budget and actual statement for the Emergency Services Fund. Similar situation there. You got in more revenue than what you budgeted for. You had less in expenditures than what you budgeted for. So you ended up, you originally had planned to add the fund balance to the tune of about 241,000, ended up adding a little over 500,000. Same story for the, okay, that was the only 2 that needed budgets. Okay, the next page then, page 27, we start looking at a little different set of funds, and these are the enterprise funds. These are what coincide with what we talked about earlier as the business type activities. And of course, they've got the separate sewer and water fund. As you could see, current assets for the 2 funds total about 21.3, and total assets of about 41,300,000. Total liabilities of just a little over 800,000. That's current liabilities. Total liabilities about 3.7. So obviously you've got way more assets than you have. You got a little bit of debt outstanding in the sewer fund, water fund. I always get that confused. Sewer always comes first in the statement. It seems like water should come first. I don't know. In my mind, it always seems like water should come first.
Not alphabetically.
I mean, it's the way it is in my house. The water comes first, it goes on.
They say, I looked that up one time and they said, well, there's 2 schools of thought, right? There's alphabetically, but typically from the more engineering standpoint, they go with water and sewer because water really comes first, which creates the sewer. So
Yeah.
that's why people say water and sewer so much.
It's
Trivia.
It's one of those little incongruities that the.
Noah, do you appreciate that, Noah?
Okay, so what you ended up with then at the end of the day here is total net position for the enterprise funds of a little over 32.3 million. A pretty good sized balance in both funds, unrestricted. Again, no real use in looking at the ratio to current year expenditures because your expenses because it clearly outpaced your expenses.
And as the board knows, we'll see a distinct change in this from the fiscal year 2026 when it's audited next year because of the large project.
Yeah, that's what it was my assumption. We're saving for something. It bothers me that GASB doesn't have a mechanism for like you have committed and reserve fund balance, but you can't do it with for the enterprise fund. So it looks like you're building up all this money when really you're saving for a project. So
Or several, yeah.
it seems like something they just should probably address. Because I mean, if the
Well, you do in your
public could,
rates.
the public could look at this, if they're not here at the meeting to hear us talk about it, they think, well, gosh, why am I paying so much money? And
Yeah.
but
We go
you're
over that
right,
at the rate.
there are very expensive assets associated with water and sewer, and they need to be replaced and repaired from time to time. So you need to put some money aside.
Yeah.
Okay. The next page after that is the income statement for the two funds. You see operating income, about 1.3 million for sewer, 1.8 million for water. So your operating revenues are covering your operating expenses very well. Total you get some non-operating revenues and expenses, and you got some transfers out, ends up with the change in net position of roughly about 4.2 million for both funds together. And that's how we arrived at our net position. So the funds are healthy. Your revenues are definitely covering your operating expenses. That's the most important. I think I see so many of these where that's not the case. And so it's a situation where either one fund needs to subsidize the other, or in real bad situations, the general fund has ended up subsidizing. Because as you know, you can't just go wave a magic wand and raise your rates. I remember this one guy, it was a municipal utility, and this guy had worked for consumers for ages and ages, and he was on the board, and he couldn't understand that. He couldn't, well, why don't we just raise our rates? You say, well, you got to talk to the public first. You can't just do that. You end up with everybody camping outside your office, which nobody wants. And the following page then is the statement of cash flows. And this is kind of a hit or miss statement. Some people like it, some people don't. Really what this is showing you is how your operations affected the cash. You'll see that both funds had an increase in net cash and cash equivalents. Sewer of 1.5 million, water of 2.4 million. So not only are you sitting pretty good as far as accrual-based fund balance, but your cash is pretty healthy too. Nice to have that good liquidity. And that's, again, another situation you see with a lot of water and sewers. They got so much locked up in capital assets that they tend to be a little troubled sometimes with liquidity. But you guys are pretty healthy on both sides.
And as this board knows, when you go through the rate analysis and how to, pay for projects, that can change quickly too. Those are the ratios that Dawn shows us, yeah.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, because I mean, 10 million for a sewer project is not way beyond the realm of possibility. Especially given the way prices keep kind of going up and up and up and up. Never gets cheaper. Okay, cash flow statement. Then there's a couple of financial statements related to the fiduciary fund. You look at that, all that is money held in your tax collection fund that belongs to other municipalities at your end. This hasn't been paid out yet. Okay, let's go forward then really briefly. We're going to look at where the notes begin on page 34. And there's nearly no new disclosures this year, so I'm not going to walk through anything specific. I just want you to be aware that here is where you'll find detailed explanations for some of the other items in the financial statements, and quite a few other things too. So again, I would encourage you to read through them and understand what we're saying here, but this is stuff that has to be disclosed because it's not directly presented. More detail for some of the items that are presented, and then after the notes, way forward on, and you don't necessarily need to go to this. Starting on page 55 are those combining statements that I talked about earlier, where you see like the streetlights fund, the developers escrow, the opioid settlement, and all those other smaller funds that were shown in one presentation up front as the non-major governmental fund. So if you've got a pet fund that you want to look at, that's where you'll find the information for that particular fund. Starting on page 56. Okay, then now, the last thing, remember I said we have two reports in here. that we as your auditors are responsible for. The second one is on page 63. Now, the focus of this report is a little bit different. Remember, we said the last report is our opinion on the financial statements as they're presented here. This report is a report on internal controls, not an opinion, but a report on internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. We refer to this as the Yellow Book report, and the only reason we do that is because the book that has government auditing standards, back when they actually used to print a physical book, I think they still do, but most people don't use it anymore, it was a really gnarly mustard yellow. So that's why it's always been referred to as the Yellow Book. And what this report does is this is where we get a chance to tell you about any significant or material findings that we reported that have to do with the internal control over financial reporting and any non-compliance that we felt was material to the financial statements. I'm happy to tell you that this is about as clean as a Yellow Book report as you will see. We had no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no non-compliance deemed to be material to the financial statement.
So just, if I could, just a super quick recap for the public who's watching.
Yeah.
When you have a clean audit or an unqualified opinion,
Yeah.
that means that the board here and the public can expect that the financial statements that they see in here are accurate or relatively accurate. And that we do not have what's called material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And what both of those things do, the occurrence of them or the occurrence of a grouping of them, one is more severe than the other, those are things that would make it so that they would make you doubt the numbers that are in the report.
Not necessarily.
Or cause risk to them.
Well, there's two ways you could get to the right answer.
Okay.
One is your auditors can help you as you go through and make a lot of adjustments. And then then we're still going to opine, it's still going to give an unqualified opinion to the numbers, but we're going to go back here and you're going to find some material audit adjustment.
Got it.
So the other way and the preferable way is you've got a good system of internal controls in place that make sure that you get to those numbers, or at least provide reasonable assurance that you're going to get to the right numbers. So that's really what this is saying, is not only did you get a good grade on your paper, but your auditors didn't have to help you.
Yeah. Sometimes audit terms sound a little like, for someone who's watching, a little bit like, what exactly are they saying?
Yeah,
And
we
just kinda wanna-
definitely, just like any profession, we have our own language.
Yeah,
And governments have their own language as well.
they do.
So that just, it is something you got to learn. But yeah, you're right. If you're listening out there, sometimes you got to try and present in layman's terms, which is what the MD&A is supposed to be for, but it doesn't give them all the information they need. Okay, the second item that you've got in front of you is in the form of a letter, and it's our internal auditors, it's the independent auditors' communication with those charged with governance, which is the board. A lot of people will refer to this as the management letter. It's not really the management letter, it really is our letter to you, and it's our opportunity to tell you how the audit went, or more precisely, how the audit went wrong. But in this case, this is a pretty boilerplate letter, and you're not going to find any types of those things in here. We would have to tell you here if we had any difficulties with management, any disagreements about significant accounting areas, if there were material adjustments made to the financial statements during the audit process. Again, I'm happy to say that there's none of that here. The only thing I would point out, and we'll look at the specifics of it here in a second, is you look at the top, there's a page number on the top right corner. This is on page, oh, went by it, didn't I? There it is, top of page 3, where we talk about uncorrected and corrected misstatements. We do have, and we'll look at the specifics, like I said, in a second, one adjustment, what we call a past adjustment. It's an adjustment that technically should be made, but after discussion between ourselves and with management, we determined that the amount was not material. However, it is still above a level that we call trivial, that we feel that you guys need to be aware of, that it's not being done But again, not material, had no effect on the opinion, had no effect on our write-up of internal controls. And again, we'll look at the specifics here in a second after we walk through the rest of the attachments here. Again, nothing here that I think, I would encourage you to read the entire letter because it is intended for you, but nothing here that's going to cause any problems, I don't believe. Okay, so after there's 4 pages of that letter, and then the following page is labeled Attachment A. And these are a couple of comments and recommendations, and these came from our IT department based on some questionnaires that the management fills out, and your IT consultants help with that. And just a couple of items related to IT that probably need to be addressed, and there are repeats from the prior year. If you guys want, after you've looked at them and discussed with management, if you reach out to us, we can kind of help talk through how these might be implemented. We may have to get some of our IT folks, because like I said, they're the ones that look at this stuff. I'm an auditor. I use my computer every day, but when it comes to IT stuff, I give it to somebody that knows better. When it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, I give it to somebody else. So I'm not an expert in IT, that's for sure. I know just enough so that I can get the information I need out of a computer, but.
And they've added an IT component. And I know the first year that we did it, it was treacherous for the auditors, the accountants, and for us to go through because
Yeah.
they're requiring stuff that all of us are like, is this English? And let's get our IT people and go through it. So,
Right, that's why I urge
Yeah.
all of my clients, I urge, get your IT consultant involved, because this was written, the questionnaires were written by IT folks, not by auditors.
yeah.
Okay, so that's, like I said, look at these, read them through, and if you need some guidance, please feel free to reach out. Attachment B, which is on the next page, talks about some changes in accounting standards that are coming up. A couple of them for this year. The only one I think is going to have a significant impact on just about everybody's financial statements is GASB 103. And there's really kind of six separate aspects. Some of them are applicable to you, some are not. Management discussion and analysis is going to change. The budget information that's now in the MD&A is not going to be there anymore. And I'll explain to why that's the situation when we get to the part about the budget. There's some different presentation for unusual and frequent items. We'll talk about that when you guys have an unusual or infrequent item. See the presentation of proprietary funds, revenues and expenses, and changes in fund net position. It's going to kind of change the layout. It's not going to change the bottom line. Again, all of this is not going to change the information presented. It's just going to change where you're going to find it. And the basic change in the proprietary fund statement has to do with what GASB defines as subsidies. Most of the time it's grants, state and federal grants, but there could be other things that are qualified as subsidies, things that you're getting that are not necessarily part of the operations. They'll just be shown in a different section. But again, we'll look at that next year when it comes by. And again, it's not going to change your bottom line. It's just going to change the way that the statement looks. The next one is information about major component units. You guys don't have any component units, so that's not going to have any effect on you. The budgetary comparison information. The budgetary comparison information right now in your financial statements is presented as a financial statement before the notes. There's been the option to present it as RSI. The GASB said we're taking away that option. We want it all presented as RSI.
What is RSI?
Required supplementary information. The only thing you have as requirement supplementary information at this point is the MD&A. So the budget comparison schedules for the general fund and the major special revenue funds will show up after the notes now. It also means that any footnotes that are budget related will move afterwards and be called notes to required supplementary information, except for the budget violations note. The Michigan statute says that has to remain in the regular footnotes. And also all the budget information that's in MD&A, those discussions will move to notes to RSI. So it'll be kind of a secondary disclosure rather than MD&A. We're still going to come to you for your thoughts and get your input on why things change, but it'll just be located in a different place. And then the last thing, financial trends information in the statistical section, you guys don't do an annual comprehensive financial report, so you don't do a statistical section, so that won't apply to you unless you decide to do that. The other two, I think we're still, the jury's kind of out on how that's going to affect everybody, so we're going to be looking at that over the next 6 months, and we'll be in touch if we think it's going to affect you in more than we think already. You don't have any capital assets held for sale, so I don't think that's really going to run into much issue, and I don't think you have any intangible assets. But again, it'll depend on how they define intangible assets. Often you look at the preliminary outlook on a statement, and by the time when you get into the nuts and bolts, you find out, wow, this is really more applicable than we thought it was. So we'll be studying that over the next few months. And the last thing here then is the management representation letter. And that starts a couple of pages on, and this is the letter that management signs for us at the end of the audit every year, just basically saying, hey, we told you the truth when you asked questions. We gave you the right number of reports. We gave you the right set of books, not the second set that we keep for just the auditors. All of that stuff. I encourage you to read through it, but I don't think you'll find anything in here that's particularly earth-shattering. Okay, then the very last page, way back in the back, is the schedule of adjustments passed, or what we call the SOAP. And you'll see we even put it in parentheses so that when I say SOAP, you'll know what I'm talking about. And really, there's just one entry, and this is a carryover from last year. Last year was the implementation of GASB 101, and so we implemented it, and when we did the calculation to figure out what the compensated absences, that means sick pay and vacation pay that at the end of the year have been earned by employees but haven't been used. So when the calculation was done of that liability, and again, this only shows up in the government-wide presentation. Because it's considered a long-term liability, it doesn't get presented in the fund statement. So when we looked at it and talked with management, we decided this amount is not material. If you don't run or record it, we can just carry it here. And once again, that was the situation this year. You see, the final liabilities are understated for about $30,000, which is way immaterial for the government-wide presentation. Now, for some reason, if this someday should present itself to be material, obviously we'd have to change that. But until then, as long as this remains material, this will kind of roll forward through this schedule.
At what amount does it become material?
Boy, I'd have to look back at what I said. It's a lot more than 30,000. I guarantee you that. Then we'd have to make an adjustment and probably do some kind of adjustment to put it in. But I honestly don't expect it to. It would have to be 4 or 5 times more at least to be material to the government-wide presentation. And that, I believe, covers everything. Any questions?
I will let the board know that Tracy and Sue and I met regarding attachment A. We've looked over it. We appreciate those comments on best practices. We'll institute best practices. We have a lot of best practices, but we'll institute and up those best practices to address those items. And we'll even provide documentation to the board subsequent from now addressing that, so.
And as always, if you have questions later on, I'm telling you, this is.
Then you can call Will because he loves getting phone calls and talking about audits. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you have questions later on, that you think about as you go back and review, you feel free to reach out. We're there to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any specific questions? Any from public? Nope, okay.
Nope, just thank you to Manage, thank you to Beth and Sue and to Tracy for all their help. Thank you to Steve and Adam as well.
Yep,
For all their help. It went smooth again this year because, when you got a good management team in place, audits go smooth. Preparation, we auditors forget sometimes that our job is dependent on the job that management does. More so than we'd like to admit.
well, we appreciate the work. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll transition right into Steve is here as well. I'm going to go over just a little bit real quickly on where we're at in a position of this year and the budget amendments that we recommend for the board. I will say the two budget amendments that were in your packet, I've adjusted those today after talking with staff, and we've just combined them all into one that's on your sheet, and we'll go over that really quickly. Let's see, in looking at the fiscal year 2026 revenue and expenditure report and where we are to date, we're looking pretty good. As you can tell, we have a lot of our revenues that come in later in the year. We even have some that come in January and February of the next year that get put back into fiscal year 2026. So there is nothing there that we've identified that you should be concerned about. The one that I always point out is obviously the cable franchise agreement, and just the way that the state is treating the right-of-ways and how some of those negotiations are going. With respect to expenditures, all of the departments, and if you see any that you call into question, please let me know, but gone through all of them and look like we are in pretty good shape, especially for 6 months through the year. I will note that in the 101 department, which we did switch the insurance and bonds in coming in from there, part of the impetus for that is one chart of accounts, but it could have stayed where it's at, but one really, so it's not its own department solely, because we've seen that where we try to stay away from departments that have just one line item, because if you go over that in one payment just by a couple bucks, then it can be an issue later. So combining that from the 865, which is where it was, and it's budgeted for 65.5, because you remember we had a pretty hefty price tag from our insurance on our premiums. So we moved that to the 101, 822. We don't need to quite cover 65.5, so you'll see on that budget amendment sheet, we've taken that to 50,300, and looking at it, the only thing that could hit that line item, I believe, is more of our dividends from off of that, so we should not need any more than that. So I've adjusted that, and you'll see that in the line items for the 101, 822, and the 101, 865, 822. So the first two on that budget amendment. Let's see. As I mentioned, the Bayshore plan was the other item. That's Department 624. As we've implemented the Corridor Improvement Authority, and particularly with the TIF, we need to move that into another fund and start to move that money and expenses elsewhere. As you recall, we put $50,000 in there as seed money this year. Whether or not it would be repaid, we didn't know. We were open to it being repaid to the general fund, clearly, but we were also open to knowing that that's seed money as well. So for right now, we will transfer that over, particularly, obviously, we're getting that started in its own fund. So the next couple line items do precisely that. We've created that fund with 252. 252 is the fund you'll see on those budget adjustments that you'll see. And what we've done is taken 50,000 out from the 101. 995, correct. And that will transfer that fund balance over so that it's not just money we're spending, but that there's actual funds in that fund. That's the 50,000, and then it takes it and puts it into the 252. That's the fifth line item you see there. And then the following two for the 10,000 and the 40,000 in the 252, 728, 730 and the 802, that takes that 50,000 and puts it between supplies and contract services, which is kind of where they tend to spend their money at this point in time. Let's see, then the last item, we kind of then took a look at, and I'm getting a little bit into Nathan's portion, but Nathan, if you want to step up here, we have a budget amendment recommended by the Parks Commission. Do you want to talk about the kind of just the crux of that budget amendment?
Sure. So, yeah, at the June 15th meeting, the Parks Commission voted unanimously to request a budget amendment to cover attorney and engineering and grant fees line item, which we were over on. We did a lot of work at the Grace McDonald Dog Park as well as the Grace McDonald Cornhole. And we are forecasting some additional work, potentially with property easements for the Holiday Woodlands Natural Area and the trails, as well as the parking area. So we've requested a budget amendment, and I think we changed it to $20,000 this morning to cover the overages and the forecasted expenses.
Because what we did was we found that in the Grace McDonald line item, we still had some funds from that project that we could put towards the project management contract with Wade Trim. So it didn't necessitate as much of a budget amendment as we thought when Nathan was before the Parks Commission. So we've taken that $20,000, and the way that we made this equal is we utilized that portion that was already in the budget for the Grace McDonald to take the amount down, and then we used about $4,800 out of contingencies, and we used the difference between the $50,300 and the $65,500 to put that in to help offset that, so that you have a balanced budget amendment in front of you. And some of the notes for that is on page 139 of your packet, which is the last page of the Fund 101 Revenue and Expenditure Report. It goes over the creation of the, it goes over the property insurance. Secondly, it goes over the creation of the 252 fund, and then the adjustment for the Department 751 for the Parks Commission. So with that, the budget amendment number, we just amended it's still the same budget amendment number. We don't need the second one because we've combined the two. It's just been changed from the one in your packet. So from there, I wanted to ask Steve if you had any comments or questions or if you had any comments to share with the board related to the audit prep, or anything financially that we've seen this year.
I've got about an hour's worth of material. I have absolutely nothing more to add. So, I mean, I don't want to belabor anything. I think the audit went well. I think, everybody did a good job getting things ready for the auditors and so forth, and filed on time and taken care of. So, no, I have nothing more to add.
Okay. All right, appreciate that. Any questions for Steve? Okay, any questions for me? Is there a potential motion on the budget amendment for the fiscal year 2026 second quarter budget adjustments that are labeled as journal entry 27193?
Need the audit motion too?
We don't usually do it, it's the audit. We don't, the only thing we would do with it is receive and file, but I don't even think we've typically done that, if memory serves me. It's just,
You just have it as a possible motion.
oh, do I have it on there? Well, that's nice. We can receive it and file it, or we can just not.
On page 51.
Well, there you go. If you would like to, you can. If not, hey. I don't think that we've done that in the past, but it must have just come to me when I was putting the packet together.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the fiscal year 2025 audited financial statements. Do you want two separate motions or one?
Yeah, we could do that. Is there support for that?
Support.
Okay, motion by Walters and support by Cook. Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 quarter two budget amendments as shown in journal entry 0000027193.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, motion by Walters, support by Cook. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. That's a lot of detailed not very exciting information. So maybe Barb will have something way more exciting for you in her report. Thank you, Steve, for being here. We appreciate it.
You will do some journal entries to do some, like you talked about, the reversals. So I'll
Okay.
get the ladies on those.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to engineering projects. We have Garth Bogart here. How are you doing, Garth?
Good, very good.
Good. You want to bring us up to date on lift station number 1?
Yeah, so I put together a few little stats and things that I thought you might all find interesting so far. So on contract 1, which is the west third of the project, a little over 2,100 feet of pipe have gone in the ground as of last Friday. They continue to install, so that number has grown since then. They are currently working in what I would argue is the most complex portion of the entire project, which is inside and around the wastewater treatment plant property. That complexity has been every bit as complex as we thought it might be going into it. There's a lot of unknowns under the ground inside that property just because of the nature of the property. There's the park, and then there's the plant, and there's a lot of history below that the contractors had to work around. So in addition to unknown utilities, there's also heavy coordination going on with the city of Traverse City right now. The TART trail also runs through there, and the city also conveniently has their own construction project going on concurrently. So I really would like to applaud M&M in the efforts that they've made to work with all of the involved parties, because it's a full-time job and then some for their project manager right now. And I'd say for everything they're doing and everything they've been dealt, they're doing well. Meanwhile, while they are working inside the plant, their directional drilling crew, Romer, is just wrapping up installing pipe down the alley that runs north of Hannah, parallel to Hannah. All of that pipe is in the ground, and I believe they are moving on next to the Garfield crossing, which is its own animal to cross. They're going to be doing some night work with the contract 2 contractor, Walton, this week to pothole and locate all the utilities that they can that lie below Garfield, while doing their best due to the night work to minimize impacts to traffic. Meanwhile, on the east 2/3 of the project, they've installed a little over 3,000 feet of pipe as of Friday. They also have 2 crews going. There's an open cut crew that's installing between TBA and airport access right now. They're installing anywhere between 150 and 200 feet a day. And then they also have Romer as their directional driller. Romer just installed the north-south run that goes from Parsons to the lift station. Everybody involved with the project had their fair share of gray hairs involved with the many ways that could have gone, and so far it's going well. They still have to make the tie-in, but the pipe run is done. So now they'll make the connection at a later date. It's not anything within the next few weeks, but they'll make the connection at the lift station, and then they're starting to work toward making the connection with Acme. They're going to get up to that and then wait and do all their connection work at the same time later on. So I believe that's what I've got in terms of what's been going on. Romer is currently working on crossing Hastings right now. That's the directional driller. They had a bit of a challenge finding a gas main in there. Took them about 2 weeks of exploratory digging to find that, and they just found it today. So we're happy to hear that. That brings me to change order 2, which involves contract 1. Change order 2 is related to the work in and around the treatment plant, which change order 1 was also related to. It's a very dynamic situation, and it's a result of just trying to keep things contractual as the contractor is full speed ahead to get everything done that they can in the time frame that the city's given them. So the gist of change order 2 is a second pipe layout change related to both the new force main and the old. Due to MDOT rail and change order 1, there was going to be some unexpected but additional work along the existing force main, which involved replacing about 62 feet of pipe along the existing main. And now, thankfully, that doesn't need to happen. Instead, they can get in there, they can cut out a small chunk, maybe 10 feet, install their 2 valves and a T, and then connect to the new force main. So change order 2 is a good news change order. I caveat that with saying the work there is not yet done. There is additional removal and restoration work that is taking place as we speak that we're currently working through right now. So change order 2 is a snapshot in time at the project to keep everything kosher contractually. So.
And I think I have this in the cover letter. Garth has done a great job, number one, handling everything with the calm demeanor that he has, and keeping everybody informed with respect to East Bay Township and Acme Township as well. They have a weekly meeting that we listen into. And again, I'd just like to reiterate, this is about a notch up in excitement from an audit for a lot of people in the public. But, hearing that there's a $60 million sewer project going on, and on top of a $40 million project within the wastewater treatment plant, it's important when you run that dishwasher, flush that toilet, and wash your lawn, run your washing machine. So appreciate the work that you guys have all done on this. The change order number 2, as it was a decrease, allowed me to be able to authorize it so that not to hold them up time-wise, because it would have. And we're seeking to have the board corroborate that and move to approve that lift station number 1 sewer project contract 1 amendment number 2.
For the $26,250.
Correct. Reduction, yes. Decrease.
Make the motion to approve lift station 1 sewer project contract 1 amendment number 2 for $26,250 decrease.
Is there support? Okay. Motion made by Bartlett. I didn't hear where the support came from. Walters. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Ann?
Bartlett.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Escorted.
Yes.
Lyle. Cook.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just said friend.
Great. Keep chugging along. We do get questions occasionally on what the tanks are there, so obviously that's part of their emergency
Yeah,
mitigation.
hopefully those never get used, hopefully. So, any other questions for me? What do you got me?
I was curious,
Go ahead.
I was curious on that topic.
Yeah.
Talked about the risk mitigation around breaking the existing force main. Where's the riskiest area? Where's that at in the
All
schedule?
risky.
Is it behind us?
It's,
A very risky portion was running that new line parallel to the old. There's a 5 to 7 foot offset between the two lines, which is very tight when you're running a directional drill 600 feet underground, and you've got what they call the pilot that's back at the other end steering the thing, hoping he doesn't bounce off it at some point. So, so far, things are going well. They still have to do the tie-in work, which is at the lift station, and then at Acme, and then down at the wastewater treatment plant. Those will be intentional cuts into the main. One good thing that we do have going for us right now is the Acme line is currently diverted to an alternate route, so it's going through and actually ultimately ending up in lift station 1. So the contractor, when they go to do that connection work, they only have one discharge point to contend with. So the contractor was able to work with the DPW on that to do some rerouting, and that helps things out. So still a long ways to go, but so far it's going well.
What's the schedule looking like? Are they on schedule?
Mid-September, yes.
They are.
That's why, I mean, I listen to those Wednesday calls, and Garth can tell you, the only thing the East Bay supervisor's worried about is, are you still on your projected target date?
Yeah, and every weekly progress meeting, there's a specific point where we say, are there any schedule concerns at this time? We have yet to hit one, so. And I tell both contractors, don't hide anything from me, because I'd rather work with you now than later, so.
Yep. Good question, though. Glenn?
Yeah, just from my own knowledge, I noticed they got manholes,
Yeah,
and is that gonna be for clean out, or?
yep, so they're putting cleanouts, ARVs, which are air release valves. Those go in at the high points to let air off the line, because air likes to collect at high points, and valves. So every valve, with the exception of 2 at each end, is going in a manhole. That makes things easier operationally. It's also a requirement due to the depth that the main is at. The new main is deep enough you couldn't get a valve wrench on it if you wanted to. So you've got to get down into a manhole structure to operate those valves. And then, yeah, cleanouts.
The old force main, they never had any manholes or clean outs, did they, or did they?
They've got a few, but not many. Not nearly as many as we're putting in now.
Okay, thank you.
2 other sewer projects that, or water and sewer projects that I want to mention, and I talked with Brian Souza today, and I know you're relatively familiar with them, but one is that we did have, and Noah is here, we did have a sewer leak. I don't understand it to be a large volume, but it was a sewer leak on 4 Mile Road that was related to a development. When the development went in their sewer line, and they do work, they put what is called a turn ball or tourney ball in there, and it inflates, shuts off the flow temporarily, and then they deflate it, take it out, and so forth. One was partially deflated and left in there, so over a little bit of time, it collected additional debris around it and created created a backup. So it didn't do any damage to anybody's home or any standing building or property, but neighbors, two neighbors in particular, I believe, noticed it. We've been in touch with the developer. They're aware of it. DPW has tracked their expenses. It's relatively minor. It's about $5,000. They are testing the water well for the neighboring property owner. They don't expect to have any issues, but they are doing that. And then what we are doing before they proceed with additional work is we're asking them to agree, and in all indications from emails and phone calls today, they are agreeing to that, is to televise that line, that sewer line in phase 1, just to make sure that there's no other issues in there, there's no other debris through there. So it's gone pretty well. I give credit to Noah for making sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and I also give credit to the developer and the project manager in, being astute and receptive to how DPW was handling that. And then, so if you have any further questions on that, feel free to ask me about it. And Noah went through all of the EGLE process that is required for when that happens. The other is, you'll remember, we have a developer who's developing about 3 lots on a cul-de-sac that we gave an easement for, because they have to do a small main extension. They would contend that it will typically in development, right, before they can build, they have to do their connection fees with the DPW. They can't do that yet because they haven't had the main extension. They contend that the main extension requires a very specific type of excavator or excavating company that they cannot get until the fall. I'm not particularly convinced of that, although I will say I'm not an expert on excavation, although I will say our engineer, wasn't Garth, but I know Brian probably mentioned it to you, was not convinced of that either. I think it was more of a scheduling issue. And so they would like to proceed with building the home and then later doing the main extension and acceptance of it. Now, remember, that's not a completely divergent process. We do this with developments, right? But there's a big difference. It's not just a scheduling issue. With developers, they're bringing in huge amounts of excavation and doing simultaneous work to get several housing units on the market. And we also have performance bonds that are posted for that, so that if they don't complete that, then we have an action we're able to take. That's not so in this case. They've asked me to, one, they want to know if they can waive the connection fees. They would like to know that they can go ahead and build the house and connect later. And I've just stood with the ordinances at this time. I'm open to, if they don't agree with that, they're welcome to ask me to bring that to the board, but I just wanted to brief you on that information. And I think that's about it. Brian probably talked to you about a couple of those, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move to East Bay Ambulance. Barb is here. She's got the report and an update for you. How are you doing, Barb?
I'm good, and I'll be
Good.
a lot more exciting than sewers and audits. We've had a busy last few months, this last quarter. Our call volume was down just a little bit because April was a pretty slow month, and I'm not sure what happened there, but 36% of our cases in that quarter were trauma-related. And it never ceases to amaze me that every time I do these, our top 5 impressions are different every single quarter. And this just is probably because it's summer, a lot more people are outside, a lot more people are out moving around. And trauma can be anything from a simple laceration to a hip fracture to a head injury. We had 253 total calls in this last quarter. 35 of those were mutual aid, 19 of which those were in Blair Township. And that is due to us covering a small portion of the northeast corner of Blair Township because of the Beitner Bridge is out. We have a verbal agreement right now to cover that area. It's been changed in dispatch, so it automatically goes to East Bay right now because Blair has such a long response time to get all the way around back to that area that the residents aren't getting fast EMS care. So we're covering that for right now. We are working on a more longer-term agreement for that because it's going to be a little while before the bridge is fixed, and so we need to come up with a longer-term agreement. So we will bring that to you when we have that.
And I'll just mention real quickly, that agreement would look retroactively too, so, and would have some cost associated with the time that we have covered it since the bridge has been down. And right now, what they would like to do, and I've talked to Nicole about this, and she said, get me some more details on it, and then we can take a look at it. But right now, the proposed agreement that we received was that for every transport, we would have we would be able to bill insurance for it, and we would have a $200 payment from Blair Township. I understand the position they're in. We do not want to make money on this, but we also want to be really cognizant of how much this is costing us as well. And most calls, as you know, don't ending up in a transport, but yet they cost us to run that and run that rig. So we're going to be taking a look at that and talking with them about that.
And so for some additional information on that, there were 85 medical calls in the last year in that small portion that we're covering. So that would increase our call volume by potentially up to 100 calls in a year. Myself and one of our other paramedics, Melissa, traveled to Texas a couple weeks ago for a Minding the Badge training. It was a Train the Trainer event. I was sponsored by a grant from Michigan Rural EMS, and then Melissa's cost for this was paid for by the East Bay Ambulance Association because they wanted to send one additional person. And EMS is constantly exposed to people's worst day all the time. And it can be very hard on people. And sometimes it can be seen as a weakness to be asking for help. But this training brought training for us to be able to bring it back to everybody else, not just necessarily East Bay, but to our neighboring EMS agencies, that help is out there and how to help people that are maybe they're suicidal, maybe they're depressed. It's just hard to see everybody's worst day all the time. So it was a really good training, and we look forward to building on the training that we received for that.
And you've had localized training on that topic here too as well.
They bring the, MyREMS brings the SHIFT, it's called SHIFT, it's a mental health convention to Traverse City every year. And it was really well attended this year by a lot of people. So, we've also had some driver's training. East Bay Calvary Church graciously allowed us to use their large parking lot for our ambulances. We thought it was imperative that we got everybody on the same schedule with driving. A lot of our driving certificates were old, 10-plus years old, and we needed to get those skills documented just because of a lot of, insurance claims this year, and just wanted to get everybody in some safe driving techniques. Everything from parallel parking, backing, turning around in tight spaces. Driveways are not meant necessarily for ambulances, and there's a lot of turning around in tight places that we have to do. So it's good to practice those things and get everybody upgraded certificates on that.
And the thing too is we often have personnel, as you know, with part-time that comes in and goes out, so it's good to have everybody on the same playing field.
We've also had a lot of special events, community events this year. We've been invited to the YMCA Family Fun Day that was well attended. The NMC Heroes Race, which is in the city, asked for us to attend. And then there's always on Memorial Day weekend, there's an appreciation day for all first responders at Timber Ridge, where they invite all the kids to come see the ambulance, and they hand out suckers and put them in our ambulance. So it gets all sticky. But the fire department is there, and then they have their fire safety, and it's always really well attended. And we ran out of all the little things that we had for our giveaways for the kids, and it's good for them to see that the ambulance is not necessarily a scary place. So that's the most of what I had for that. We did have one really good success story after I had this quarterly report done. We had a visitor from out of state that was enjoying our Vasa Trail on a bike. He went into immediate cardiac arrest after he stepped off of his bike. East Bay responded to that and got him to the hospital, resuscitated, and he went back home 100% neurologically intact. So those are few and far between stories, but it's an honor to send our visitors away knowing that they had such good care.
That's awesome.
That's our success story for the quarter.
Barb, do you want to visit on the grant opportunity that you're working on?
Yes, and going back to that Minding the Badge training, we got Michigan Center for Rural Health emailed me and said that we have a grant opportunity. It's a very short application period. It's due this Thursday, so they didn't give me a whole lot of time to work on it. But it involves a lot of community outreach for training EMS for mental health awareness, for dealing with mental health patients, also for EMS, for resilience, for us to be able to deal with it. Like I said, it ties right into that Minding the Badge training. But it also has funds for training the public in Narcan awareness, opioid awareness, Stop the Bleed training, CPR awareness. There's a lot that we can do with this grant. And I'm working on putting it all together, and hopefully we're successful in that. It's a large grant.
So this is one of those items, as Barb mentioned, it has a very short turnaround time, very short. And so this is one that we'll put in. The board is, if we were so fortunate as to receive the grant, the board would have the opportunity to review that with the grant agreement and decide whether or not they would like to enter into that grant agreement. Mindy?
Are there any matching fund requirements on that?
I think there was a 20, was there 25% on that one?
I did not see a matching funds on that one.
Okay, we'll take a look at it again.
Can we use the opioid money?
So we don't have very much opioid money. I mean, we have 4,000. But yes, when we were talking about, whether this was worthwhile, clearly it is. And the programming that the ambulance is proposing to do is completely in line with some of the smaller things that we've put forth as that the township wants to do and considers a priority, even in small ways. So like the opioid epidemic with the Narcan that we have at our facility, as well as education for, say, businesses and so forth, and how to administer Narcan, and residents as well, too. So yeah, we'll support it with that, too.
All stuff that we wanted to be working on anyway, it just gives us the ability to do what we wanted to do.
Yes. Mhm. Well, thank you. Any questions for Barb? All right. Well, go forth and save more lives. That's fabulous. Congratulations on that. Okay, with that, we will move on to Facilities and Recreation Report and update. Nathan, how are you doing?
Good.
Okay, so we went from audits to saving lives. How are you going to fare up here?
Yeah, hopefully the excitement continues with Parks and Rec.
And Zach is here as well. Zach, our chair of our Parks Commission. How are you doing, Zach? Good. Good.
All right, so the East Bay Corners Farmers Market, off to a good start. We've got 10 vendors. We're averaging about 90 visitors each week. The Power of Produce Kids program began July 2nd. We had 24 kids registered. We had 13 come to the first event. Additional market schedule throughout the season. We've got partners, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, is coming to a handful of events, providing information on environmental health. Tart Trails will be here. East Bay Libraries doing a couple programs. Our partner, Market Manager Seeds, will be doing a couple of cooking demonstrations. They've also been coming and giving free food samples as well. Conservation District, Metro Fire Department, the car safety seat checks have been really popular, as well as MSU Extension later in the season for the petting zoo. Holiday Woodlands Natural Area, we're still moving forward with planning. We're waiting on our Michigan DNR Trust Fund dollars that are anticipated this fall before we can begin construction. We're still looking at opportunities to improve the parking access, as well as connectivity to Mount Holiday, and trail routes are in the final stages of being laid out. The Grace McDonald Cornhole Sledding Hill Fire Pit Project, as you know, a contractor was selected a few months ago. We're working with our engineer, who's going to be doing the construction management, just to ensure that the scope items are meeting our needs, looking at things like drainage around the pavilion, putting a conduit sleeve under the sidewalk, things that we can do now to help us in the future. We're still working with GT Metro to ensure our plans for the vinyl barrier and the gas heater can be incorporated on the pavilion this fall after construction. The ceiling of the pavilion was power washed and clean, and we're going to be putting on some new fascia board here in the next couple weeks, just to get that cleaned up and ready for the vinyl and the heaters. And the light on the sledding hill was replaced last week. The Parks Commission is looking at playground updates for 2027. Possible locations include Pine Grove, Arbutus Lake Number 5, and Killingsworth. We did apply for that trust fund grant for Arbutus and are looking at other funding opportunities to help support these projects. Jens Park, we had the new toilets installed. Those have been working great. That's been a really nice addition to that park. The
That's
Pine-
great. We've had problems with those
Yeah.
flushing for a long time, so.
Yep, they're a really nice toilet. It functions great. It's kind of like a prison toilet, similar to what we have at Arbutus. In the next couple of weeks, hopefully, we can get some seats on those, just to make them a little more appealing to folks. I haven't had any complaints. I don't know, they work great, but if it goes good at Jen's, maybe we'll put some seats on the ones at Arbutus as well. The Pine Grove Sports Court, project. We were planning for that to take place in early September, but over the weekend, it sounds like the contractors had some availability, and so they're actually looking to start that here at the end of this month. We've got those new basketball hoops going in, as well as the permanent pickleball net system and the appropriate game striping, so that'll be a popular addition for that park. The East Bay Library roof, that's still scheduled for August 15th. You saw the HVAC or no, we didn't. We'll go over that next. We did receive quotes for the HVAC and electrical upgrades. Later this winter, we'll look at RFPs for the exterior paint and the window upgrades. The Township Hall parking area was nearing completion. We were holding off on the one section that you've probably noticed that isn't reseal coated yet because of the election box, but also we're still looking at dealing with this slightly elevated area in the parking lot, which is causing the puddle and the pooling. We were initially looking at drains. Mullins Excavator came out, and we were kind of leaning toward actually regrading that section of the parking lot. Would be around the same cost, and it would be less of a maintenance issue in the future. We did just receive a quote on that. I think it was late last week. We had some follow-up questions for Mullen that we're going to work through. And they still have a little bit of striping left to do for the elections. I believe I didn't see that out there yet.
Do you want to talk about the sign that we're looking at doing too with the sheriff's office?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, so we did move these two handicap spots over one to make these two spots by the island. We're going to make that into a safe exchange zone. A lot of municipalities have these, so those two spots are within view of our security cameras. So this is a place where people can utilize it if they have child custody exchange or for e-commerce. It's a place where folks can go to make an exchange. And so we have a sign that we're working on that we'll have installed there. We're going to put the sign post in the island. The arrows will point down to those two spots, and that'll be a safe exchange zone.
Interesting.
Mike Shea's he was gonna look over the signage, improve the signage and so forth. And it is noted that it's not monitored, but it is recorded 24/7, so.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that'll be a nice addition for the community members that want to use that. The part-time position was filled about a month ago. Terry's been enjoying it. He comes with a wealth of experience in his years working for DPW. He's been a great addition. This time of year with parks in this region, we're really focused on keeping the bathrooms clean, keeping the trash cans empty, keeping the trash picked up, emptying the grills, and then all the other things that come along with, maintaining the bathrooms and the properties. But we are finding time to get out there and do other things. We've installed some new fire extinguishers in our parks. Down at Jens Park, we put in what they call a water cannon, which a lot of the facilities along the bay have this. So if you have an outdoor grill, actually Metro suggested that we should have these. It's just water. It looks like a fire extinguisher, but it's just water in a pressurized cylinder. We also have one at Arbutus because we have the outdoor grills. And then we do have two of the more traditional style fire extinguishers at both of our pavilions now at Grace and Killingsworth. We're hopeful to start on the little libraries this week. We've got 3 little libraries that we want to get put in. We did get the new picnic table out at Pine Grove. We do have some safety signage that we bought this winter that we want to get installed soon. So yeah, it's been nice to be in the parks. Terry and I both have got a lot of positive feedback from the community about the work that the township has done in the prior years and now to improve the parks, to keep them a safe and welcoming place. So
Great.
yeah, it's been a good quarter. Any questions about any of the parks or upcoming
Zach, did you have anything
projects?
else to add? Okay, so thumbs up, yeah, okay. Yeah, do you want to go over then it's on your desk, is the library HVAC and electrical upgrades? We talked a little bit about this you had a question, or?
Well, I mentioned that the backside of the library has that up there. What did you find up there, just out of curiosity?
So, yeah, we looked at that from a distance. We'll be up there with a lift when we are doing the roof and that sill plate, but it looks like paint and stucco. And so I believe we did actually get a quote from GT Construction to redo the paint. We were looking at initially doing touch-up on the building, and the closer you get when you look at it, they were really like, we wouldn't want to waste your money doing touch-up. If you look at the north side, the paint's peeling off. In areas where it looks like the paint's good, you can see it's bubbling. So they did provide us a quote to essentially power wash the whole building and then repaint it, and that would include doing some of the trim boards as well, repainting those. But we're going to plan on doing an RFP for that this winter.
We're going to get the roof done, get the beam done, get the HVAC done, and then over the winter months, do the RFP for the paint and the windows. Because they've got some pretty leaky windows as far as energy efficiency.
Yeah, the windows are in really bad shape. Couple of the sills are just completely rotted out. They've got storm windows on storm windows. So yeah, hopefully, if we get all these projects through, the building's going to be in pretty good shape come next summer.
But Nathan's got quite a bit on his plate right now, so I told him I think we can take, over the winter to get that done and get that done first thing, kick off in the spring, rather than trying to fit into some contractors' schedules late in the season.
Yeah, it's tough with the contractors. I mean, if you guys want to do it, we could probably squeeze it in this year.
You're just
but-
making work for yourself. I mean, you're
know.
working quite a bit of hours.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes, for sure. But we know that it's a priority, whether it's done late this year or early next year.
Yep. So, yeah, I think we did discuss at the last meeting that the furnace in that building is beyond its service life. So here we are proposing that Sharon replace it with a Carrier ductless mini split so that the unit can meet the building's cooling and heating demands. This will allow us to remove the old air conditioner that's in the front window of the building, the window air conditioner, as well as eliminate the ductwork that runs along the floor on the south and east sides of the building. On the inside, if you recall from being in there, on the south and east side, there's a large build-out on the floor. It's probably about 2 feet high, and it sticks out about 2 feet, and that's where the ductwork for the furnace runs. So it really takes up a lot of usable space in that building. The library is not able to push their bookshelves or desks. They have their computers along there for the public to use. They're not able to push any of that stuff against the wall. So we decided that a mini split would be a good option. Sharon agreed. There is one other additional mini split in there, so these 2 mini splits would meet the heating and cooling needs of the building. Along with the Sharon quote, you'll see a quote from TSI Electric. So TSI would be doing the electric on this project, and in their quote, they're also going to be installing a surge protector on the main panel. I know I did discuss with TSI Electric some additional scope items that weren't in this estimate, that they were really enthusiastic to complete. So I'm not sure if that's in this language somewhere or if that would be additional, but I know this cost was much lower than what I was anticipating, but a couple of the other electric items. So I think we put a 10% contingency in here to possibly cover those, but we'll be dropping down some electrical outlets in the building because of the age of the building. There's really not a lot of plugs, so TSI Electric was like, yep, we could add some electrics here. Making some updates to the panel, obviously with this new mini split, we would be eliminating 220 volt breaker for the front AC unit, as well as there's a breaker in there for an old range that's no longer existent. There were a couple other minor electrical things that we were going to do to the panel just to make it safer, more user-friendly, just overall electric upgrade for the building. So yeah, tonight we were looking for a motion to approve both of these quotes and a 10% contingency.
Just two quick notes. One is that these are within the scope of our contract with the library, so these are all items that would fall with the township's responsibility in that agreement. And then the other thing is, we had talked with the board about this before, and that we did not do an RFP for this. We looked at this as a single source bid because we're using Sharon, who has installed a mini split in that building before, so we would like it to be consistent. Plus, they do all of our servicing of our heating and cooling for the township. So, and their price is right in line. I don't, I wish I looked this up before tonight, but I don't think we spent much under that when we did the initial furnace the first time with the mini split. I'm kind of surprised because that was before COVID, I think. So was pretty pleased with the price to do the project.
Yeah, and that includes removing the ductwork. And I do see here that it looks like me and Terry will be removing the chase around the ductwork. So I think we will have a little bit of in-house work on that. Shouldn't be much.
Any
You
questions?
guys, have any questions about either of these or the library building?
My only question is they're requesting 50% down. When are they looking to do that? As soon as we pay the 50 down, or?
So we haven't scheduled, I know Sharon reached out this weekend to follow up about their bid, and I said I was still waiting from the electrician who's extremely busy, and I just let them know. I know fall's coming, so I said, hey, if you can get us something by Monday, we can present it. So we probably wouldn't be scheduling out very soon, but we haven't talked about scheduling.
Just the 12.6 would be 5,900 without the 10% and without the TSI. Is that what we're hoping to make a motion with tonight?
No, we would just typical like other projects, we would approve the entire project and then we would go by the payment terms with the vendor. So the motion to approve the project would be to approve the Sharon and TSI Electric quotes with a 10% contingency to install a new mini split in East Bay Library, making necessary electrical connections and upgrades, and allow the supervisor to sign the related contracts.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there support?
Support?
Okay, there is a motion by S. Cortade, support by M. Cortade. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by no? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate your work on this.
All right, thank you.
All right, have a good evening. We will take just a quick 5-minute break while I get some copies made, and, what's that? Yeah, we can definitely see that. We'll just take a quick 5-minute break, and we will take a look at that. Okay, next on our agenda, we do have the Granger Group Development. We have,
Are you skipping the zoning?
well, the zoning report, yes. No, I'm not skipping the zoning. 2 seconds.
No problem.
I was thinking that it was only the zoning report, and that is in your packet. However, we do also have the zoning amendment on the invasive species. That is in your packet. You'll find, no, I thought that we already had the introduction, didn't we, Sue?
No.
No.
Hearing was held on Tuesday, June 2nd, at the Planning Commission, and we introduced it on 156, and it was discussed at our June 8th meeting.
Yeah, it was at our June 8th meeting, it was introduced. So we should be good to go. Let me just pull up the minutes real quick and double check that.
Well, you have no motion, possible motion.
For this one,
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
I don't know why Claire has that as no motion, because, does anyone have the minutes from last month? Quickly at their,
Looks like she's got it as an introduction, as an agenda item. ZA 326, invasive species introduction.
I
It's
did-
dated June as well, so that's.
I think she might have potentially put in the wrong cover sheet.
Last month, you had board members ask questions, and the item will be scheduled for consideration on July 13th.
So I think we just had the wrong cover sheet on there. We can certainly, this doesn't limit us from taking action on it. However, we can just bring it back in August as well. So it's up to the board's pleasure.
I think that the SISMA is trying to spray, though.
Yeah.
I think the SISMA is trying to spray, so, for Rennie, so I think that
Yep.
action would be appropriate.
Waiting until August. meeting.
Well, I don't think that that would stop them from, I think this would incorporates it, but whatever the board decides to do would be fine.
I would like it to make a motion to approve zoning amendment 3-26 invasive species.
Is there support? Who did I hear from support from? Okay. Motion by Walters and support by Escortade. Any questions or discussion? All right. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call. Ann?
Walters?
Yes.
Escortade?
Yes.
Lyle? Cook?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
M. Cortade?
Yes.
And Friend.
Yes. All right, with that, you do have the planning report that is in your packet. Claire is on vacation this week. And so with that, we will move on to the Granger Group Development. Lindsay LeBlanc is here did I pronounce your last name correctly?
LeBlanc, yeah.
Yep. To introduce this to us, this is a project that has been approved by the Planning Commission, and they are making steps to implementing it. And we thought we would bring it before the board just for an introduction on the types of development that you're going to have and some of the financing mechanisms that you're looking at.
Exactly. Thanks, Beth, for that introduction. So my name is Lindsay LeBlanc. I'm from Granger Group. We are a developer located down in Grand Rapids, but making some inroads up here in Traverse City. We own a bunch of land up in Acme and have built some residential housing up there and are looking to do some more houses here in East Bay Township. This development was approved back in October of 2024. It was originally called Blue Water View. It's at the corner of Hammond and 4 Mile. So we have officially closed on the land, and we bought the entire development package, so site plans, the approvals, and really just looking to actually finish the project and get it built. So this is just a brief overview and a quick introduction. We are looking at some incentives to get this project financed, and we'd obviously love your support in that, so.
And workforce housing too, which is an
Correct.
important component.
Yes, exactly. So the second page in your packet is just the site plan and a couple of renderings of what these homes will look like. They're single-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch houses. So they'll all have the same floor plan, but different facades to kind of make them look different and have more of a community feel. These will all be rentals. So the units are 1,387 square feet. On the third page, that is what the floor plan will look like, some interior shots of what those houses will be. So there will be 30 units in total. 9 of them will be workforce housing. So they'll be 100% AMI and below. So the rent listed here is $2,700, but actually, as part of the incentive package, we have to cover part of like a stipend for utilities. That's $380 a month. So the rent for the workforce housings will be $78 a month. And that's really comparable with Live East Bay, which is kitty corner to us. They also have workforce, so we're keeping in line with their rents as well. The market rate will be $3,100 a month for these houses. On your fourth page, so we'll be developing this in a 3-phase, 10 units per phase. So our goal is to get through the brownfield. We're looking for TIF brownfields, as well as the Public Act 237. So hoping to get through that this fall with approval. We'll start site work in January, and then the goal is to deliver at least 10 units by May of 2027. We'll deliver 10 more during the summer, and then the following 10 will be delivered in early 2028. So it'll be a phased development. And that's kind of just a rough outline of what the different phases will be, and then a timeline for you to kind of see how we'll be ironing out or delivering the units. And the last page in the packet is our project financing and incentives. So just a quick overview on the project itself. Our total project is $13 million. Land cost is $850,000. The hard construction, so that's site costs, building costs, is $10 million. And then we have almost $2 million in soft costs. So that's design fees, financing, accounting, marketing, all of that. So our total depth is a little over $8,000. We've got, our equity is $4.1 million, and then we're looking into a MSHDA TIF modernization loan. So basically what that is, it's through MSHDA. It's an incentive to developers to build more housing, housing that is workforce oriented. And that will only be in place while we have the construction loan. Once we get to permanent debt, we'll pay back MSHDA so they can continue to rev up that pipeline for more housing for people. But what we're asking for your support in is, one, the brownfield TIF. So 30% of the units, so 9 units, will be workforce housing. The incentive timeline is 15 years, and the total lifetime reimbursement will be $2.2 million. So there's a breakdown of what those infrastructure reimbursement costs are. So we're looking for 50% of our site costs to be reimbursed. A lot of that has to do with the land itself used to be an orchard. So there's a lot of arsenic, so we have to do a lot of mitigation for that. Soil removal and replacement, and then obviously infrastructure work itself to get the land to support housing. Our rent recovery loss is $400,000. Some of our developer costs, that's just hiring our SME as our partner in this. They're putting together the brownfield plan. And then public infrastructure, $460,000. So we're working with Beth and with Claire to finish out your Safe Routes to School trail system. So that will be embedded in the brownfields and will be a reimbursement directly back to the township for the construction cost of that.
And that portion of, it will connect to the Safe Routes to Trails. It's not a portion of our funding for that part. This is the piece that will will continue from the end of it, and then go over to this development, and then up toward Live AE. Between the Live AE public infrastructure that they've allocated in their brownfield for the township and this, it will cover that. And Claire's been working with Joe Slanecki with Wade Trim to make sure that those costs are accurate and in line, because there are some real ditches down in that area, gullies, if you remember.
And so for both the brown and then the brownfield and the Public Act 237, We will not be capturing school debt and emergency services. So I just want to be clear that that will be taxed at full capture rates on the property. The other incentive, and that's just directly related here to the township, is Public Act 237. So that is if you provide workforce housing at 100% AMI or below, you can reduce your property taxes by 50%. So that only is for the 9 units that are going to be considered workforce housing that we would see the reduction in property taxes. So the lifetime reimbursement for that is only $316,000. So $26,000 annually. We'll also do a carve-out for that one as well, that will pay full property taxes for your services and school debt, or emergency services and school debt. And that's something that we'll be working with Beth to do a special district for that. So anyways, we're really excited about the project. We think it's a great alternative to the complementary, really is what I want to say, to the Live East Bay, right? They're all 2-story houses where we'll be ranches. So hopefully be able to cater to a slightly different need and provide more housing to people up here in Traverse City. So.
Well, thank you. I did want to just real quickly talk about the process that we'll be going forward. Ann Jameson, on behalf of the county, is working with Granger right now to get this, go through the financials and make sure it's in line with the brownfield application. That will also be coming to us just prior to that, as you guys know, for a recommendation to the brownfield. While these incentive programs can go up to 120% of AMI, the county has really showed that they're wanting to approve only ones that go up to 100%. And so that's where developers in different townships have been targeting them. So the brownfield, we've been through that process. We've also been through the 237 process with Crimson, and that one will be just the developer requesting that we set a residential housing district, and we'll define that district based on their application. I mean, it is up to the discretion of the township board, but what we're looking at potentially doing is just the property that is the development. And then once that district is in place, then they can submit the information to they'll have the application, which will go through us, and then it'll go straight through to the state a little bit later in the year. Glenn, did you have a question? No. Oh, I'm sorry. You did, Mindy.
Yeah, of the 9 units, how do the 9 units go with the phasing?
So it'll be proportionate. So 3, 3, and 3 for each portion, or for each phase that we deliver, we'll have 3. And then it will be income restricted, so our tenants will have to qualify to live in the units to make a certain, that 100% AMI of what the income threshold is. I don't recall what that is off the top of my head. And then if that tenant it's an annual statement that they'll have to provide their W-2s. If they exceed the 100% AMI in their income, then they will be bumped up to the full rent, and whatever unit is available will then become one of our workforce housing units.
So similar to Crimson and to Live AE, the workforce housing units are not a specific unit or address. They can rotate among them, which is one of the things I think planners really particularly like about integrating the workforce housing with housing. It's not like, well, those are the income restricted ones, or these are the other, it's
Yeah,
just,
the quality will be the same across the board for every single unit.
residents won't even know what's what.
Exactly. So, nope, we're not trying to discriminate in any way, shape, or form, just trying to provide alternate housing for people. I know that we've been working with a lot of employers, Munson, of just needing more housing and housing that's affordable for nurses and things like that. So I'm excited to provide a solution.
One of the things, and I think I've mentioned this to the board before, I was surprised about when Housing North and their Atlas presentation that they gave at West Shore Bank, I was really surprised. I think, like a lot of people, most people are out looking for a single-family home, right? And actually, their market study showed, and their presentation communicated that there is a significant portion of people who are looking for a single-family home without the home ownership responsibilities. So the rental model of single-family homes is really very interesting that Liv brought us, and interesting to continue with Evergreen. You know, it allows people, it allows our current residents, we did hear a lot from our current residents, they like single-family homes. That's what we're used to in East Bay Township. And also then from the market study that Housing North, or Atlas, I can't remember, communicated, was that's what people are looking for, which kind of surprises me, but, you know, hey, different types change, right?
I think after COVID, there's a lot of travel nursing and things like that. So our development up in Acme, they're called Acme Flats. They are zero-step entry condos, in a sense. They're all for rent, but it's really nice for retirees who want to just come up here and test the waters. They like living up here. And then we get a lot of travel nurses, contractors, things like that are coming from downstate to live up here, but only for a short period of time. But it gives you the full amenities of having a home. So definitely trying to capture that as part of our.
Water and sewer is right in this area, as you guys know, because it's right near the roundabout there. So the infrastructure is there. The density is all in line with the zoning ordinance and so forth. You might have noticed, Lindsay mentioned when the approval date was, and of course, we have a 2-year window, so they are coming back to the Planning Commission for that year extension. And by all means, from their timeline, they'll make the progression needed during that time, during that year, that they'll be in compliance with the zoning ordinance. So we just wanted to, as Ann Jamison is going through some of the final details, and Granger is responding to those, and talking with Lindsay, we just wanted to get this in front of you, kind of, you know, let you know what they are looking at, what the township board would have to do in response to that, and the decisions that they would have. And see if you had any specific questions. Of course, you know, we'll have subsequent times that you're in front of us, but we wanted to get some things lined up as they'll be applying for certain things.
I just do want to caveat that the numbers listed here in the reimbursements are still a draft. So we are actually meeting with Ann on Thursday to review them. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get in front of the Brownfield Authority on July 30th at their next meeting to be able to present it there and kind of really get this in motion. So this is not set in stone yet. As we finalize the numbers, we'll certainly obviously update this for you so you can see what the real reimbursements that we would be requesting would be.
And I did get an email from Ann today, a voicemail, and she said specifically, just so they're introducing the concept of the project, don't commit to any numbers yet. We're going through all of those things, which of course, we've let you know that. So, Sue?
I just want to make sure, I want to clarify the comment I heard about the Acme Flats and the similarity. These aren't short-term. They're at least 30 days, 6 months, 1 year.
Yeah, and our Acme Flats are not short-term either. That is something that we're working through with a tenant. So, but no, these are year-long rentals, so, correct.
Well, when you talked about the builders coming up and testing the water, I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, I mean, like, I think in Acme, we do 90-day leases for traveling nurses, but nothing is short-term as far as, the 90 days is our shortest lease in Acme. I don't know what the specifics here will be, but we would do the same. But no, not short-term rentals. So not vacation houses at all.
Glenn?
Yeah, water and sewer benefits, are they going to be paid at regular rate, or are they
Of course.
discounted?
Nope, everybody is paid at the regular rate. I don't think that we've ever discounted benefit fees. Matter of fact, I'd like somebody to try to come and get that past you, Glenn. That and Lindsay took notes very well because she made very specifically in here that the special assessment district millage was not captured in any shape or form. And as a matter of fact, I owe you that form, that sample agreement on the special assessment for the 237.
So anyways, if you have any other questions, happy to answer. And Beth has my contact, so we can also go off hotline.
Yeah,
So
any
I'm
other,
really excited about it.
any other questions tonight? Okay, well, we'll continue, we look forward to continuing to work with you, and, yeah, sounds good. We'll wait to hear from Ann and hear what the formal dates that you'll be at the Brownfield and then to the township. All right, thank you. Okay, with that, we have in our packet mid-year rate adjustments. I can speak to this a little bit, and Sue can as well. You'll recall when we passed the resolution 2025-40, that we did have some footnotes on those that, one, that the Facilities and Recreation Coordinator was not being updated at that time, because even though we did set the wage rate previously far enough before to do a COLA on it, we just had a brand-new employee in there starting in the November timeframe. Right, and so that was a bit foreshadowed when we passed that 2025-40. So that COLA adjustment is in here, as well as it made note, right now it's replaced with the blue writing on page 163. But in that box on the previous resolution, it had that COLA adjustments would be done at a subsequent point in time. And you can see that those are in there, and the wages are calculated in blue for both of those mid-year adjustments. Did you have anything to add with that, Sue?
No, the Election Commission did meet on June 30, and we did discuss this and approved to bring it forward for Board action.
And I would add one more thing too. The footnote said that it wasn't adjusted due to the recency of hiring. However, reviews will be conducted within 3 to 6 months. And in the position which could yield an adjustment to keep wages current. Have done a review with Nathan, and he has delivered some excellent work for the township, and has been a good addition to the township, and you can see from his report getting projects done across the township. So with that, we would put before you Resolution 2026. Do we know what number this would be, Sue?
I didn't even look.
Okay, we can take a peek on the website real quick, or in the minutes from the last month. Let's see. I'll tackle one if you tackle the other. Okay, it looks like the last one that is on the website is 2026-15. Let me see what meeting that was at. That was at the 11th of May. So as long as we didn't have any in June, then you didn't see any? Okay, so then we would be at 2026-16. Are there questions for either me or for Sue? Is there a motion on the resolution?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-16 and the 2026 wage recommendation as presented by the supervisor and the Election Commission.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Bartlett and support by Cook. Any further discussion?
Question. On the facilities coordinator, he was hired in the middle of last year, right?
He was, well,
Late?
so he started, I think we hired him like the end of September, but he couldn't start until November. But we set the description and the wages and did all the postings my recollection is in the summertime.
Okay, he didn't get a 2 point,
He did not.
okay.
Because I didn't want to do a 2.8 when we had just had him there for like 4 weeks, 5 weeks or something. Other questions? Okay, Ann will do a roll call vote.
Certainly. Bartlett.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Lyle.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
Walters.
No.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
And Friend.
Yes. Okay, very good, thank you. We will move forward to the TCAPS agreement.
Before we go there, can I ask that, would, on the deal for the people in Holiday Hills East that want to not pay the benefits or hold them, should we make a motion on that, just to settle it once and for all?
You know, I did not mention to them that I would mention it at this meeting, so I'd rather not make a motion. I will communicate to them again what I've been telling them, which is, no, you need to follow the ordinance.
Okay.
If they still believe that it should be changed, I will give them the opportunity to present before you. So if that works for you, I'd rather do that than just go make a motion without letting them know that it was on here tonight. Thanks for bringing that up, though, I appreciate it. Okay, we are to the TCAPS agreement. This is a possible closed session. In the packet, you do have, and this is in the public packet, a East Bay Charter Township Sewer and Water Utility Connection Agreement. And then you receive separately a communication dated July 10th, 2026, and over, I think, an abundance of caution, I think Rob, wanted to let us know that we could definitely meet in closed session if we chose to. It's a pretty open, straightforward process, I think. And Noah is here. I do know that Dr. Van Wagner was planning on coming here, but he had his own board meeting as well tonight. And he probably cursed himself because he said, I can probably make it because I think it will be relatively quick. And so right there, you knew that was not going to happen. But happy to have Noah give the board kind of the steps on this, and I can as well. But why don't you first let me know if you would like to meet in closed session or if you'd like to waive privilege and discuss it in open session.
I don't understand we would go to close for.
Okay.
I don't understand what the concern is. to go for.
Like I said, I think just over a preponderance of caution, he wanted to give us that option. Is everyone else fine with waiving privilege?
Yep.
Okay, we will waive privilege. We will then go over the topic. I will note that as Mindy and I were looking at it, we do have a typo. One is on page 167 on the true up payment. So we will get into that, but just know that we have a correction going back on that. Noah, would you mind joining us for a second, and you can kind of keep me straight as we go through here? So this is pretty straightforward. It is kind of interesting for geeks like us who are interested in REUs and meter sizes and local government. It's probably pretty boring for everyone else, but so TCAPS is building the field house, as you know. We have agreed with them, and y'all know this, that we're relocating the well house. It will be attached to the field house. We have partnered on the backup generator for that, and there is a service agreement with all of that. This is a different issue. When they went to go pay their connection fees, as you all know, we have an REU chart table. The memo here, I think, does a pretty good job of explaining things, but the REU is not a perfect science. Rob calls it kind of a squishy science, right? You're trying to take everything back to an REU of one single individual home. You also make categories that are pretty standard and typical: a hotel room, a restaurant. Yeah, exactly, all of those things. There are some things that we don't come across very often, that, you know, it's subject to some interpretation and some on where they would fit. I think Noah's done a great job when he took a look at it. You know, he priced it out at first and he was like, I think they're coming in here with the REUs based on it being like a gymnasium. Is that the term on the REU that it was? Huh, there we go.
Correct, a gym.
Gym. And so it ended up being pretty expensive. It was in several $100,000. And hi, Dr. Van Wagner. We said you just probably and you guys all know, you guys all know Noah Carberg, but I should have introduced him for any of the viewing public as the director of the DPW. So he went through, he took a look at it, and you know, it sounded high. TCAPS obviously alerted us that it sounded quite high and drew the distinctions between a school, which is a separate REU. Noah, if you want to talk about how you went through and mitigated it and where you ended up with, and it felt that you went as far as you could go with the REU table, rather.
Sure. Thank you. So I think the relevance of that discussion is Dr. Van Wagner and I met several times to discuss my RU calculation. My original first pass, I categorized the entirety of the field house as a gym and applied that basis. I recall, I believe it's 0.7, the rate was 0.7 benefits per 1,000 square feet. Then, of course, for a facility of over 100,000 square feet, that multiplied out to approximately 60 or 80 some benefits and over $600,000 in fees due. So TCAPS and I sat down and discussed. I felt TCAPS made a very cogent argument breaking down how this was primarily, at least in my view, a school facility for the school year, and then in the off period from the school year, it would be used for different purposes. So I weighted the two uses by that. And I came back with, I believe it was around 18 benefits and 150 some $1,000 all in. Of course, I discussed that with TCAPS, and I think well, thank you, that's better, but we still have concerns with the rate. But as far as what I believe my role is for adjudicating according to the East Bay ordinance, the metaphor I use is that I'm out of runway with what I believe I can do as a DPW director administering an ordinance at this point, and it's a rare point to have to turn something back to the township. This is the first item I've administered in a year in probably 100 projects. That is done, so that is done exactly that.
Yeah, and Rob goes on to speak, you know, there are certain instances, again, where we don't have a whole lot of comparables. So one of the things that TCAPS mentioned, clearly before I met with Dr. Van Wagner, I had our legal counsel take a look at it. He had his legal counsel take a look at it. And when we met, you know, just like two people who are looking out for their organizations, the discussion becomes what my attorney says and your attorney says. And neither of us really want to go down that road of dueling attorneys. And so we want to do what makes sense for the township's water system and the usage of it. So we agreed that the attorneys would work together to take a look at this project and the process that the DPW went through and what made sense, because as you know, we have to have a reason and rationale behind what we collect. So they did that. They met not only with TCAPS's attorney and our attorney, but we also had the DPW, BPW attorney involved with that as well. They did come to an agreement that they thought made sense for all parties. Then the discussion became, okay, does this really go through the township or through the BPW? You know, Rob thought at first it should go through the BPW. The BPW attorney thought it should come through the town. Like, it's fine, we'll take it through the township and see, it is our REU table. But in the end, what the agreement was is that, in truth, we want to bill based on the closest to the actual usage and what the usage is and so forth, and the connection fees. So what we decided to do is agree upon a base amount that would cover the connection fee, and then, as you've read through this, monitor this for a year once it's in service, not, sitting 3 months vacant during construction, but from the time it gets put into service, monitor it for a year, and then calculate up what the actual true connection fee would be, as opposed to a theorized one based on REUs. TCAPS, I believe, has agreed to that we've agreed to the base fee based on some of the considerations and options of $80,000 as that connection fee, and then the true up after the year. If it is more, let's just say the water calculation ends up being, it should have been $150,000 connection fee, then TCAPS would pay the subsequent $70,000. If conversely, and this is where we do need to add one word into here that was missed, but you will notice too, the motion, let me just get back to that first point. Conversely, if it is less than the $80,000 and it's like, well, it really should have been a $60,000 connection fee, there would be no reverberating or retroactive funds back to TCAPS. The motion does say, we move to approve the draft sewer and water utility agreement connection and agreement with TCAPS, subject to non-substantive revision of the true-up process following TCAPS review, and is finally approved by the township supervisor and the township attorney. This was put together pretty quickly. I don't think the discussion was quickly, but I do think, getting the documents together and so forth happened over like a week's time. So it wasn't, but TCAPS's attorney was able to look at it. Our attorney is the one who drafted it. So that is what is for the board's consideration. I would ask if Noah had anything else to say, or Dr. Van Wagner.
I just have some very brief prepared remarks that I'll list, 4 of them, I believe. So I have reviewed the agreement. It is something that the DPW can administer with East Bay and TCAPS. As I previously mentioned, our goal at the DPW is to self-administer the township's, our service township's benefit ordinance. This is the 1 out of 100 that we haven't been able to administer. 90% go through without issue. There are a handful that do involve some consultation with the township manager or supervisor. This is the first one that's ultimately been referred back to a board in my little bit over a year of tenancy in the position. I've worked with TCAPS, as I've mentioned. I believe we did everything we could in good faith at our level to try to resolve this. I think it's appropriate to move it forward at this time. And whatever outcome the board decides to go with, I believe they're both defensible opportunities. This followed a clear procedure, lots of consultation. It wasn't rushed. And I do believe that all appropriate steps would take, so whatever action you take, I think you can rest comfortably taking that action.
Dr. Van Wagner, do you have anything in particular?
Just again, I think, Beth and Noah have been great. Yeah, sure. I know better than that. Just leaving my board meeting. Have appreciated the consultation with Beth and Noah, working through it. It is a unique situation. We're a school. Everything that's being done in this, beyond kind of some of the media stuff, is not really true. It really is school activity. What's happening here is no different than Central High School or East Middle School across the town here, has a gym, all that. So feel like, that, but we also want to honor, there's a cost to put the system in and all those elements. But, it's relatively, well, the building is, the bathrooms, it has 8 bathrooms. It's not, from that standpoint, it's really just a practice facility that happens to be big because you need a regulation field from that standpoint. But as far as the water utility, it's much smaller than any of our schools. For instance, Montessori, that was built a couple years ago, has 55 bathrooms. You know, and so it was, and that school idea, this is fully on the same piece of property as East Middle School, same tax ID number, all those differences. The only difference is it's not attached. Central High School's gym wasn't attached for 65 years. So, you know, we think that this really is a fair way to look at it, paying the fair share that we think, you know, is for the public utility. And just again, appreciate all of the conversation with Beth and Noah that I think, and attorneys, I think Rob and our attorney got along great in working through it, and just appreciate the consideration.
Yeah, I think I'd echo what both the gentlemen said, in that none of us for our organizations were out to, for lack of a better term, out-shyster each other. We really wanted what would be fair to the water system, what would be fair to the school district, the township, and so forth. The other thing, and just kind of illustrating that RU table doesn't adequately address some things that are not more standardized in nature. A gymnasium, you know, they could be if they were building something potentially with like a pool, Olympic pool in it for schools to use, that would probably come under the same category potentially under gymnasium as one that doesn't have that. So there's obviously a huge water difference in that. So we felt like, you know, monitoring, agreeing to some base amount and then monitoring and truing up would be appropriate. Let me get back to on this agreement on page 3. And this part would have been corrected per the motion that the township attorney provided on page 2, but we will correct that right here. That should be a payment of $80,000. And the verbiage should be, the true-up amount shall equal the actual connection fee minus the provisional connection fee. If the actual connection fee is less than or equal than the provisional, meaning, you know, say it were $60,000 and they paid $80,000, no true-up shall be due, and TCAPS shall receive a refund. That is not accurate right there. TCAPS shall not receive a refund for the reduced amount. Correct, Dr. Van Wagner? That's, go ahead, what?
The conversation was that it would reduce no less than 50,000. That was written there.
So was that with your counsel as far as, so it would be 80,000, it would go down no less than 50. Okay, that's what Rob was talking about then. Okay. All righty. That makes sense. So, exactly. We had on ours, and this was, if the true-up shows that the actual RUs are less than 80,000, we do not have to pay them back anything, that was your risk. I think that's what was changed. I think that may be something that your council wanted to see changed in here.
And my understanding is he and Rob agreed to that from that standpoint on Friday when the newest document was sent to you.
Okay, he did not send me an updated letter then on the agreement. So what I would do then is I would ask the board, knowing that this is the kind of agreement that we're looking at, that we have, you know, a very different project and it doesn't fit the REU table perfectly. And the type of thing that we were looking at is a provisional agreement amount and then a true-up. How would the board like to see that handled? Go ahead, Mindy.
No. Your best estimate, after all the discussions on the use, was the 120 or 130,000?
Correct. I recall it was the $150,000 figure all in, including the meter cost and permit fees.
So we're luckily not looking at that being at less than the provisional fee is what your point is? Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
You know, I thought about all this, I've read the stuff that was in the ticker, went through it all. This is a sports complex, correct?
I would say the ticker article had misinformation.
Is the sport, you're gonna have to get up so
Yeah.
you
I
record.
would say that the ticker article had misinformation in it. It is being used by our kids, no different than Central High School's gym is. Identical purposes.
But inside track in it?
Yep,
Okay, so it is a sports complex.
no different than a gymnasium.
The thing is, we're sitting, or called here tonight to look at this, to pick a price. The next person, because we don't have a sports complex or whatever in our REU table, is that the big problem?
Sure, there's nothing comparable to what they're doing.
Okay. Would it make sense to go out, figure out, put it in the table, and maybe look at some other things in the table, bring it back, and that sets the precedence of what a sports complex REUs are by whether you do it square foot, I assume that's how you do it. We got center ice over here, that's a sports complex. I don't know, probably somebody'd have to dig to find out how many benefits that paid.
They paid for, yeah.
You got the YMCA, but it's got a pool. You can back the REUs for that pool out of whatever they are and find out what those REUs are.
So,
Rather than sitting here and piecing something together, picking a price, when it isn't really what the REU table was set for. It was set for, everybody was treated the same for the same thing.
so you raised some good points. The REU table, when it has more standardized usage, you can go back to actual studies and usage to document that, right? There's a reason why a house is set at 1 REU and how much that's related to. The issue here is that there isn't anything related to these more specific things, in particular this one. They did look at what the other school additions were charged, what those types of things. NOAA did look at how much water is being used from other things, what this is anticipated being used. That's how NOAA came up with the 120, 150 that we're talking about. This agreement and this process will give us what you're desiring to be at, which is an actual amount. It is not just picking a number. It is picking a number that will be adjusted for a factual number, a data number. But where you have the process flipped is in waiting to do that until, we can't wait to do that until it's under construction. And if we were to charge the REUs, then we could inflate those to a level and charge them to a level that's not appropriate, which could give could signal a legal course of action.
And I understand exactly what you're saying. What I'm saying is, create REU for sports complex. And if you want to divide it into one as school, you got another line item and then it's commercial. So come up with something, we're going the back door. We're looking at a price, not at number of REUs. You got, I think of what 50,000 is or something, you're talking about 10 REUs or 15, whatever.
Double that because
Okay, what about a fire line? Does it have a fire line on it? That's another cost with the water. So my suggestion is, does it make sense to go out and get this, whatever we're gonna do for sports complex, if you're gonna do sports complex for schools and one for commercial, and then come back, figure out what it is, and that's what it is, rather than sit here and try to debate. I've seen this price, I guess I was kinda shocked when I looked at it. It was 650,000, and then it was down to 151,000 maybe, and you're asking for 50,000. We're a
No.
long ways, we don't know how many benefits it should be until we draft it up at BPW's and bring it back to the board, and this is what a school sports complex is. X number of REUs. And then, I don't even know why we're sitting here, for the simple fact this should have been handled, in my opinion, just the way, we don't look at benefits. We have nobody coming in, they might complain to DPW that it's too much money, but people, they know how many benefits it takes when they go to do a project. We don't. With this situation, we don't know how many benefits it takes. We need to come up with something that goes into the benefit table, so we know what it is, so the next school comes in, they know how many benefits. Because if we don't do it, somebody else is gonna come in here, we don't have a benefit table, and we're gonna go through the same thing.
So one of the comments I would make is, this is,
That's just my opinion.
sure. One of the comments I would make is, this is how we improve the benefit table. This is where we get the data to improve the benefit table. Coming up with something that is attached to what we feel like it might be, I mean, this is even a more substantiated way to determine how we should develop something in the future. So I think that you're more taking a stab in the dark if you go about it in flipping that process than in doing this. This gives us the ability to have the connection fee that is pretty close to where we're at, with an agreement that says they will true up and be at that amount. I do take it that Noah, and I know how much time he has spent on this, has taken a look at usage, where it would be, how much he thinks it would be, and about that $120,000 mark. But remember, NOAA can't change the REU table. We passed that REU table by ordinance. That's why it's coming to us and not the BPW. So, I think that this is a really rational way that I would say two very smart men who are working together for the best of their agencies, plus three very intelligent attorneys got together and came up with a process that would work for the agencies and within the ordinances and the situation that we have.
Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Noah, the meter that we're talking about here, would this meter be required if it weren't for this agreement? Or is this like a connection through the existing school service?
This meter would be required regardless of the issue before you. Specifically, we have just recently at the BPW moved commercial and large multifamily residential accounts to a cellular meter that enables, instantaneous daily resolution of meter use. So it's a matter of convenient timing.
Okay.
Other questions, Matt?
No, I mean, Glenn, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think a lot of this is semantics. It's, gymnasium, athletic facility, sports complex, field house, which they're calling it. These can be all different things, and, they can have everything from aquatic centers, gang bathrooms with showers. So obviously a lot of demand there, pools and ice facilities, like you mentioned. I don't know much about this facility, the particulars, but, I heard 8 bathrooms. I guess that refers to 8 toilet fixtures, individual stalls. Is that it? Are there shower complexes? Or, that's probably a pretty limited usage, and I would imagine that whatever service size that y'all have calculated for the facility is probably reflected in that. Pretty small service, I would imagine.
It's a very good and a very relevant question. We had those discussions. My recollection is that it's a 6-inch fire line and a 2 or 4-inch domestic service. I don't recall which.
Mindy?
I have a question for Dr. Van Wagner. What did the engineer's estimate have for connection fees when you bid the project in the first place?
Very similar to TCAPS Montessori when we built it. So recently we built TCAPS Montessori. It was 83,000 square foot. And when that came through, our connection fees were around $46,000. And that's with 55 bathrooms. So you can see how, when we looked at that, we essentially took the amount of square foot, increased it to the 125. So we were sitting somewhere around a little more than the $50,000 number is when we based it off of what happened from a project we did 2 years ago as a school. Because every project we've done in the entire county, when we do this, is a connection as a school. It's a school building. We have a classroom in there that will be used for summer school activities. There's a built classroom in the building. Everything we do, our plan review, all that goes through the state. As a school, it has to have school alarm systems. It has to have all the fire alarm, all of the emergency alarm for lockdowns that a school has. So when that was looked at, we compared it exactly to the Montessori building we just built with an MHSA competition gym in it. From that, and so that's what we had based it to use off of that square footage, and that number is how we budgeted off of it.
Thank you.
While you're there, I hear you talk about the school. This is a public-private?
It's not. It was
not?
donated to us purely. We own it, we run it, every aspect of it. We were given a donation purely from that aspect.
Is the plans to have them have, like, tournaments and things?
Yep, but no different than we do already at West High School or Central High School, those tournaments, but only about 6, that's built for our kids, to be able to do, and we're trying to get it to the point where our kids don't have to travel, and go downstate, and our parents that have all that cost, that's why the donated money was given to us. But essentially, most of it is going to be our kids through the week, all of those things. But we run wrestling tournaments at Central High School for youth tournaments with 2,000 kids. We run, all those
I ran the
things.
team program
Yep.
years ago, so I know exactly what.
The only difference between this and Central High School's gym is it's on the back half of the property with a trail that goes through it. Other than that, essentially, no difference.
I know, they took
Yep.
care of those fields for
Yeah.
19 years.
And so that's when we were kind of caught off guard because we thought it would be coming as a school. So we looked at the square footage, we multiplied that, what we just did at Montessori being built, what we've done at West High School with some of the additions, things like that, always come through the school. Montessori was 100% school, even though it has a 20,000 square foot gym on it. From that aspect. So that's the part, we don't, like in the summertime, we actually think it's going to be more our summer camps, archery camp kind of things, robotics camp, drone camp we want to do with the kids. That element, it's the wintertime is when we see those 6 tournaments where we try and do that we're having for our kids, but it is a fundraiser for our different teams to be able to do, for our soccer team, for our wrestling team to be able to roll mats out, that element. The track will be used by our kids. TC Track Club, that's our neighborhood people, will be able to walk on it, seniors in the morning and afternoon. But again, we open Central High School up for people to walk the halls and do those same elements. And so we really felt like it was going to come through as a school, like every other project we do. And so that's where kind of this is. But again, we recognize that, maybe there is that little bit more. And so that's where we came up when we were in that 50 number. I think the 80 number we pay, and then if it is more, so be it. If it's a little bit less, it's probably closer to what we actually thought it was going to be, based off the numbers that we just did in Garfield Township, based off of the school use, that, this is built for our kids. This is, from that element.
In the REU table, we don't differ really from Garfield Township on these things. It's the same for Garfield Township. The difference is, well, quite honestly, it's 2 different DPW directors. And I will say too, it is the limitation of the REU table. If we, no judgment, but if we had this by meter size, we wouldn't be having this discussion. They would be paying a certain meter size and we would move on. That's the meter size per charge that Don went
Well,
over.
but you make that same argument, we have an REU table that we're not using. The only question I have, bringing it back here, is that we don't do this for individuals in the township. We don't say, the one individual of the house, and then we're going to check and see how much you use for the year and then charge you. Or if this family down the road has a 4-bedroom house with 10 kids in it, they pay the same amount.
It's a good point, but I would say that there's a big scale difference that we're talking here. REU tables, one of the things they're built upon is the routine usage, and so they have some good data that goes behind those houses. And the difference between them is marginal at best, right? Between when you have a family and then when you have, say, an empty nest or something like that. And this is a very different type of facility where we don't have the data. It does not come through very often.
Yeah, I get that, and I understand it. And I don't have, I guess where I'm at is I think I would just rather see, let's pick a number and move on. Because the double checking back is, again, is not fair to everybody else. It's a system you're designing for this situation only, and it doesn't apply to everybody else.
I can see that, but though I would have you consider that truing up, so one of the things, right, legally, we need to be as accurate as possible, right? We can't just pick something and that's where it's at. That's why we have the RU tables. Unfortunately, this doesn't cover that sufficiently. And so if we do just pick a number and we're way off, I think we leave ourselves in a not comfortable area from a liabilities, from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, from who? That's the point.
From TCAPS. And I'm not worried.
But they're going to agree to the number, so where are they going to go from there?
Well, I think that they would, I think that they would agree to a number that is routed in some factual basis, not one pulled out of the air. And I think that's why we've had so much in discussion and trying to get to this. As I said, and I do go back to the point of, we've had some very skilled people working on this from an administrative standpoint and also from a legal standpoint. Sue?
I'm going to weigh in on this. I appreciate the work that Noah has done. I don't think that he came into that number lightly. I also understand that Dr. Van Wagner is doing his best for the taxpayers that represent the TCAP school district. But from the township's perspective, we have a knowledgeable attorney that drafted a document that talked about true up and not to reduce. I hear Dr. Van Wagner saying his attorney had said something different. That's not what we have before us. I wouldn't go against what our attorney said based on this. If we were in closed session, Dr. Van Wagner would not be able to be part of this discussion that way. I hear what Glenn is saying. I believe we do need to do a for-profit and a nonprofit arena. I would say, profit, nonprofit is two different things.
But we can't do that through, not to interrupt you, but
Not through an REU?
we can't do that legally. We can't distinguish between profit and nonprofit. It's all based on water usage.
Okay. But, so back to my comment or my thought process is, I would be more comfortable with the work that Noah has said dollar-wise, but that's not what our attorney is recommending. Our attorney is recommending that 80,000 with the true-up and not to be less than. I would be inclined to accept the attorney's statement that way. I would not be comfortable with going less than 80 if those numbers didn't show less. Or if those numbers showed less. 80 is that floor.
Other thoughts or comments?
Do we have, I know time is of the essence here, is there a drop dead date on making a decision here?
Go ahead, Dr. Van Wagner.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there were.
Yesterday?
Yeah, it would cost us more dollars if it was what our
Sure.
contractors are.
And I did tell Dr. Van Wagner because there was a question as to whether we would have this information body accumulated for you tonight. And I told him we'll do a special meeting if absolutely necessary, but we did have the information. I did understand, and I apologize if I didn't delve deeply enough with our attorney on Friday when we were talking via email, the attorney and I, and on the phone. I did understand it to be an 80 without reverberating or going
I
back.
would say, our lawyer did talk with them, but in the essence of time, I could live, and I think I could take to my board, what was put in the original document. I think,
Yeah,
like,
and I.
again, just for, because we're waiting from that standpoint, I do think, I think it's, again, based on what we did, Montessori is 50, but again, with essence of time and where you're at, I think that does it. And the true up, I think, to the point Glenn made, I think it sets a precedent for what this is. You're going to find out what that number should be based on the usage. You're going to learn that from that standpoint with this. And maybe it is 110, maybe it's 120, maybe it's 70, but we end up paying the 80, and, at least you have a baseline for the future for something similar. But, otherwise, it's a school. The hard part we had with this, and I truly believe in my heart still that this is a school facility. This is no different than any other school we do, anything we do. At the same point, how many classrooms is it? How many classrooms is Central High School's gym? When it's a classroom, right? And so if you really want to look at this, the field's one classroom, right? So that was the problem in the REU from classifying it as a school, is I didn't think it was fair. When Beth originally emailed me and said, how many classrooms did I? I'm like, well, technically 2. It's the field and the 2,000 square foot classroom we're building. I said, but for the taxpayers and the purpose and the intent of what this is, I took, the Montessori averaged to about 3,700 square foot a classroom when you took it all in. And so that's what that was based off of in Garfield Township. So I do think it's a fair, element. And again, it may prove more. I think it'll prove less, but, with only 8 bathrooms. But again, I think that this is a fair way to be able to figure that out. Otherwise, I think, we would still, but from the standpoint saying it's a school facility, everything we do is a school under state code. The definition of an indoor athletic facility is a school under state law, under the code, building code. So we feel that, but at the same point, in the spirit of trying to do this and get to a collaborative way, this is what we came up with that I think is fair from that standpoint.
And so like our legal counsel would have some legal challenges to Dr. Van Wagner's,
Yep.
but we're not, that's
Yeah.
neither there. I will say, I would be more bothered by this discrepancy that I didn't quite get clarification on than on Friday, if I thought that it was actually going to be below 80, but I truly have a lot of stock in the analysis that NOAA has done on the usage there. And that plus the fact that Dr. Van Wagner, on behalf of TCAPS, is willing to look at that original discussion that they had, I think sounds good. Yeah.
Just one quick, this true-up idea, how are you going to determine the REUs from usage? Is it like every 1,000 gallons, every 20,000, something along that line?
So, we'll let NOAA, but every REU is so many gallons per household. And so they'll take the usage, then divide that by that, and it'll tell you how many REUs. Correct, Noah?
Correct, and I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact number used in these tables, but I think the average comes down to, it's several hundred gallons per day as a residential.
That's my point. So whatever we're using in that table as an REU to determine an REU is what you're going to use here.
Correct, it's a standard industry range.
But you'll take our actual usage and then titrate it to
We don't
that.
do that for anybody else. That's all I'm getting at, is that there has to be a number there. So, okay.
Other comments or questions, Mindy?
On page 167 of the packet, or 3 of 5 on this agreement, 3.3, it talks about if TCAPS doesn't pay within a 60-day period, that shall be interest, but it doesn't give you a rate.
Well, what have we normally charged on anything that runs late?
It's a 10-year treasury bond. At least that's what we run on our SADs, and I'm pretty sure that's what is used for the, when we finance for development.
And actually, I would actually take it back to the DPW, because they're actually the ones collecting this, not us.
Yeah.
So,
Pretty sure it's
Noah, what do you guys charge?
Typically, it's the 10-year T-note plus 1%.
Yeah. So that would go through the DPW, because the $80,000 they would be paying to the DPW on our behalf, and then anything that was late then would go through their billing cycle as well.
I just want it to be Crystal,
Sure.
not gray.
Nope, good question. Good question. If there's no other comments or questions, the motion that the attorney has in his memo is that, to move that we approve the draft sewer and water utility connection agreement with TCAPS, subject to non-substantive revision of the true-up process following TCAPS review, and as finally approved by the township supervisor and the township attorney. So you'll notice it says TCAPS review, and that's because when he drafted this, their council had not seen it. Their council has seen it at this point, and so we would probably say a true-up process as finally the true-up, substantive review of the true-up process following TCAPS review. Nope, that would stand, I believe, because I was thinking about the agreement, but I think it's on the actual true-up process, sorry. With that, we would change the number 3 true-up payment to indicate a payment of $80,000 with no refund for any reduced amount. And we would ask the legal counsel to make that change.
I would make that motion.
Is there support?
I'll support it.
Okay, there's a motion by Bartlett and support by Walters. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by no?
No,
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote, Ann.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
S. Cortade.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
Lyle.
no.
Cook.
Yes.
And Friend.
Yes. I would want to take a half a second to say, as many of you, we've known each other a long time, you know that I've had my fair share of issues with TCAPS over the past 18 years. And I will say it has, Dr. Van Wagner has been a very fair, workaholic professional to work with, obviously as well as Noah too, goes without saying. But Dr. Van Wagner had a much higher hurdle to get over with me. So I do appreciate that level of work. All right, with that, we come to public comment. Any public comment?
Any public?
Any public? Seeing no public comment. Did either of you have any final up comments, or you're good?
I'll just say, appreciate all your work. You know, this is, again, for all of our kids here in this community. And, you know, it's going to be an outstanding facility. And for, for our community members, seniors, TC Track Club folks. So just appreciate all the support. Appreciate all of Beth and Noah's support. And just thanks for your service as board members. I just had all of our board members in for 2 hours, so appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Okay, with that, our upcoming meeting date for August is August 10th. And if there are no objections, we stand adjourned.